Does the black moon howl?
Only for those with an unwavering desire to hear the truth.
Access granted.
You have been selected for an opportunity, an orientation as a trusted associate, if you will, into the secured, contained, and protected files of the Foundation. SCP Unredacted distributes new files for review Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern on secure channels on YouTube, Spotify, and scp-unredacted.captivate.fm.
Hey there, SCP fans. My name is Grigori Karpin, and this is Simply Creative People, the show about SCP creatives, be they authors, artists, or offsite content creators like YouTube and TikTok. We're focused on bridging the gap between various fans and serving as an introduction to different concepts and stories on the Wiki. So, many welcomes to all, and let's get started. Hello! Welcome back to Simply Creative People. This is episode 29, which is the working title of the Great 001 discussion, but we might think of something funnier along the way. My name is Grigori Karpin, author on the Wiki, and joined by my lovely co-host, as always.
Codename HarryBlank.
And returning for the third time, right?
Yep.
Plaguepjp, our favorite guest.
Wow, that's a high honor from you guys.
Well, it's just by default because you've been on the most times.
Numerically, mathematically speaking.
That's right. Objectively speaking. So yeah, we kind of were talking about a reason to get you back on, and you had been working on your 001 Plague, and Harry's done an 001, so we thought, why don't we get together and talk about some of our favorites, and we're also going to talk about both of yours.
Right, yeah. Perfect mix.
So we've got, I think, like 8 of these, and these, if the audience doesn't know, 001 proposals can get very dense and very long, so we're not going to do deep dives on most of them. We're going to be selling the concept, the setup, and then kind of why we think it makes a good 001. And anything that an author decides to label an 001 is an 001, and we're going to go over what the hell that means in a second.
What an audacious statement.
Right.
Can you imagine how many people are shaking their heads right now?
Well, too bad. But,
yeah, welcome.
Why we think these are good examples, and not just our favorites, although that is how we set them up. And then, there are so many, we're probably going to come back in like a month or two and do another episode like this.
Yeah, I intentionally left out a few of my favorites because there's people I want to talk to about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so but because you both have done one of these 001 proposals, I thought for Creative Corner, we could kind of go into, for yourselves, I'm not going to have that much to add, how you went about writing it as opposed to a normal article. Or, was it just the same as ever?
Yeah, you want to go first, Plague, since yours was more recent and is still has the chance to go up higher?
Yeah, so I think I kind of went into this with knowing it was going to be a 001 proposal. I've been planning to have one within this year. I know it's something I wanted to accomplish, but going into writing it, I think the only thing I really did differently from what I do normally, which is a real stream of consciousness style of writing, is I had a bit more planning in place where I needed to give a character arc, I needed to have a separate story arc to get where I wanted the story to go. And that's really hard to do with just stream of consciousness. Some people are good at it, some people aren't. I happen to be the latter. I need to structure myself. And like I said, I don't normally do that, so that's maybe the only difference. But I think this is like a little esoteric kind of pitfall people fall into. Making something with the intentions of it being special could dump and ruin it, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I know people go into like K-Cons with like intentions of making something special, and sometimes they're not hitting the mark because it's not really them, or they're trying to do something that isn't normally something they've written. So I wanted this to be a comedy article because that's what I write on the Wiki 90% of the time, and this is one of the only comedy 001s because of that.
But there's been another one recently we'll also
We've actually
talk about.
got one of the only other ones.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them are comedies because they're so bad. Oh, hot take. Not the ones we're going to talk about today.
This is a terrible thing to say on the occasion of Clef's retirement from adminship.
Okay.
Wow.
Hey, I like a lot. We've talked a lot.
You said some of them are terrible. There's no way you didn't mean Gate Guardian.
That one is not good. Certainly. I will say that we have talked up.
First thing I ever read.
Yeah, me too. Well, no, that's not true. But it was soon.
I'm sentimentally fond of it, but it's not a very good article in retrospect.
Yeah, same. I'm sentimentally fond of anything that deals with the Garden of Eden. Actually, I think it's a very interesting concept. It's why I've never lost my love of Vampire the Masquerade. But we've talked a lot of supportive, in appreciation for Clef's writing. But we have also not been equivocal about the fact that we don't like all of it, and I really do not like his O1, but I like a lot of his other stuff. So,
well, this is the number 2 author on the wiki. He's got a ton of stuff. It's not all going to hit for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, I think he just grew as a writer.
He absolutely did.
Yeah.
His later stuff is just miles above his earlier stuff.
Yeah, he's got such incredible character work in his later stuff that just, wasn't as much there because he was younger and not as experienced. We have all been there.
And that's all we're going to say about Gate Guardian, even though we didn't say anything about it at all.
Yep. But Harry, what about you? What did you, I know you actually have been planning for like a long time to do another 001, but in the 001 you did with Ep, what did you find different as opposed to one of your other
What was that, Plague?
What?
What did you say?
I didn't say anything.
Really?
Really?
There's a ghost in the machine.
All right. He's just going to be muttering in the background to himself and denying it. Okay. Sabotage. That's my job. I'm the saboteur.
Go my bad.
No, it's all good. It's all bad. It's all good. Oh god, you've got speakers on, haven't you? I just heard my own voice reflected back.
Oh yeah, do you not have headphones in, Plague?
Well, look at those ears that Dog has. He just can't fit headphones on them.
There's reverb now?
I didn't hear it now, so I think we're probably all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
that's weird.
It's all good.
Okay.
We just need more technical difficulties to
Stop
make things
procrastinating.
Double O, shut up.
Talking about his rating.
If I want to take up my entire space of time talking about gibberish, I will. So yeah, I was glad to be reminded that Plague started out writing this article as a 001 because it provides a good contrast to the Plaguepjp proposal, which did not start out as a 001 at all. It got the idea right to something about why the Foundation's front companies all have the initialism SCP, even though that would be a security nightmare from Bjork, who essentially bequeathed that idea to Ip. And Ip was rolling around in his head for a while, I suppose, and thought about how in the canon that everyone here, and also Ip and Placeholder and multiple other people were involved in creating On Guard 4-3, had a lot of stuff about memetics and ways in which words and images can alter people's minds and their cognitive processes and the way things work, and decided maybe we could write something in On Guard 4-3 about why there's a memetic reason why the SCP Foundation does that. And so that's what it was. I thought I heard you talking, but it was actually I heard me talking reflected from you. That was interesting.
Yeah, Plague, if you have headphones, I think you should probably use them.
Last time they weren't very loud.
I'm assuming I'm assuming that you're not on push to talk, and the voice activation is being set off by your speakers.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's always good to have a bit of chaos. Although I usually prefer to be the one instigating it. I turnabout's fair play. But it wasn't going to be a 001 proposal. It was going to be an article. And every once in a while, they would throw out suggestions for which numbers might be best. And just everybody who writes an article likes to do a bit of numerology and pick one that means something, or one that's entertaining, or one that somebody else wants that you want to steal from them just to poke them in the nose. And eventually, it got so big and so detailed and so complicated and so fancy, and there were so many images and there was so much stuff, and it was so diving into the background of the Foundation and all that we went, well, we didn't go. I went, do you want to just make it a 001 proposal? And he kind of was taken aback and then went, yeah, I'll have a third one.
Yeah.
So then we put extra effort into it because we knew it was going to be that. And it would have not ended up that way. It absolutely was a 001, and it couldn't have been anything else.
Yeah. Something I'm going to bring up a lot, because for each of these articles we're going to talk about at some point why we think this makes a good 001. And we're going to explain what an 001 is in just a second, I promise. And one of the things that I hit on for not all of these, but many of them, is that it is historically important to the concept of the Foundation in universe, but then also reframes a lot of things that we see on the wiki out of universe that writers have done over and over again, tropes or little details like the SCP initialism. And this one did that perfectly, because I hadn't ever seen a very good, I'm not sure that somebody else hadn't written a reason. There's, 30,000 things on the wiki, but this was,
I think there's maybe, I've seen like one explanation elsewhere, but yeah. Why would they do that? That just advertises that it's SCP. Well, this is why. A
couple of episodes ago, we talked about Prometheus Labs buying up, or Amazon buying up graveyards near SCP sites, and we made a joke about how they would use the initials SCP in the names of the graveyards. And if you didn't know, that's what we were talking about, because any Foundation front company, which we utilize a lot in the fiction, is SCP. I have actually never done it because I find it so fucking cheesy, but I always laugh. I always think it's fun when somebody thinks of a new SCP, and it's why we named this podcast what it's named.
Yes.
So, why don't let's talk about what an 001 is. Okay, so just some basic history, if the listeners are not aware. So, in every other case, there is a numerical entry on the main list for SCPs. One article goes in there. Unless, in cases where it's like iterations and you click a button, it becomes a new article. But the point is it's one article, one story, one project that goes in each slot. At least, apocryphally, I don't know how true this is, but early on, it was kind of like the first, way back when Series 1 was being ran, the first was kind of left blank for a long period. And eventually it became this idea of people proposing what the 001 would be. And it became part of the site, mythology, that no one knows exactly what the 001, the first numerically recognized anomaly that the Foundation has found, is. And all of the ones that we see on the list, when you click on SCP-001, you get this screen that tells you, you can't go any further, and if you look, you're going to get, a mimetic kill hazard or whatever it is.
And then a picture of, as somebody in the comments put it, grandma's wallpaper pops up in front of you, and that's the mimetic kill agent. And
then you scroll down a significant portion. It looks like a blank page for a while.
It actually tricked me when I first joined. I didn't know where to find it.
Mm-hmm. Me too. And you scroll down eventually, and there are something like 30 of them now, 28, something like that.
Quite a few.
Yeah, and it has become this thing. It's not necessarily what I'm going to suggest right now, but a lot of people think that this is sort of like the great culmination of someone's writing, quote-unquote, career on the wiki. This is their big project. If it's not, an X, 000, or setting up a canon or something like that. This is one of those milestones. Most of the big authors that we know that, from the past and from the current, from the present, at some point either want to or have, accomplished writing an 001. And the idea is that there's all these different versions of it. And they tend to be fairly large in scope, if not always long in terms of content, although a lot of them are. They are big projects. They are interesting and often, kind of reframe the idea of the wiki entirely or the world of the SCP. They sometimes are concerned or interested in setting up what is the origin of the Foundation or, some major aspect of the Foundation like Harry's is. Plagues actually does a really fun job of.
It looks like there's actually more like 45 of them.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm just counting.
Plagues does a really fun job of like it's not directly addressed, but it feels like this interesting idea of the process by which we decide whether or not an article could or could not be an 001.
And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I'll go into a lot of depth when we talk about it.
And we'll do it. But
I'm very much looking forward to that.
So that's just some context. So 001s are these big articles. They are milestone articles. They're often really well written. Even the ones I don't like, I have a lot of respect for. And
even the ones that aren't well written often have really good concepts.
Yes, yeah, and they're they're not always epic in scope, but oftentimes they are, and even the ones that aren't epic have like some a certain panache. They are the articles that almost everyone is pretty familiar with, which is interesting because most of the time it's hard to remember what a number of an article is. But in these cases, we all know what
they all
these
have
are
the same number.
Yeah,
and they're all memorable,
and they all have like. They're almost always Roundahouse's proposal or Plaguepjp's proposal or the Ep29 proposal, Pikmin Blank. And then a title.
That's the other weird thing about them too. It's a curiosity of the old formatting that they all have more than one name, because on the 001 page they all say code name, Pikmin Blank. Oh my God, story of your life. And then when you open the article and check it up on Chrome or the bots or whatever, it's called Pikmin's Proposal, SV01 Pikmin's Proposal. They've all got two names, even though it's a bit of a mess because it's one of the oldest pages on the wiki.
But then most of us don't typically refer to them that way. We refer to them by their titles, which is interesting.
Yes, that's true. That's also true.
Except for the ones where people have, I typically don't say God's blind spot. I say Spike Brennan's proposal. I don't know why, but in that case I do.
And even though that's not one of these, the old ones are very, very, very frequently just referred to by who they are. Like, I don't know a lot of people who talk about the prototype. It's Gear's proposal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, there's a few people who have more than one. Cactus has, I believe, 4. I think Ip and Locke both have 3. I think Jack Ike probably has 3 as well. A few people have 2.
Locke has 3?
Roundhouse has 3. I thought Locke did a 3rd one, but I'm not sure. Or was at least working on one. So it's still 2? Yeah.
Well, spoilers.
And Roundhouse has 3.
Soon to be 4. Yeah.
Soon to be. Well, not soon, hopefully.
Yeah, no.
And then much later, 5.
Oh, God. Which is, that's just a creation of the wiki, and the fact that we now have over 7,000 mainless articles. Who knows how many tails? 10,000 probably.
Yep.
And it's just going to expand, exponentially. But there's still a pretty, tactile number. Like, it's 45 as opposed to the 12 when I first discovered the wiki or whatever. But, they're still very, like you said, memorable, and they tend to stand out. So that's
there's tons of canons that I can't remember from day to day, but I've never heard someone mention a 001 that I hadn't heard of, at least.
Yeah, there are still a few I think I haven't read.
There's a few I haven't read too, yeah.
But most of them I've read. And like, I think it's pretty common early on for someone to try and tackle reading them all. I did that back in 2015. And then I've tried to go back and fill in the blanks, but it's, the page reorders itself all the time. So like, it's like, well, which one which one did I read again? Anyway, okay, so that's what an 001 is. It is within the wiki authorship and the fandom. It is a big fucking deal. So
super high scrutiny compared to regular articles.
Yeah, they get a lot of attention.
Way easier to get one deleted.
Yeah.
I've seen many a seasoned author fail in my 2.5 years here, and I'd also like to say how, like, the 001 concept is one of the smartest concepts I'd say the wiki came up with, both like an in-universe perspective and a out-of-universe writing perspective. Because someone like us, where we joined pretty midway through late into the what I'd call the lifespan of what we have here, or like where the peaks really were in 2020 and 2021, where like, imagine we came in and like all these older slots were like impossible to get. You never have the chance getting a Series 1, and somebody in 2008 already filled in the 001 slot. Like, hey, that's a special slot. Like, we get our chances at the thousands every time a series opens. every so often an article gets deleted, but like I think having that 001 slot open, making it into something special is something that keeps a lot of people going here, being like, hey, I would like to reach this level.
Yeah.
Right.
Be able to write for that. And that was something that kept me going.
Right.
Interestingly-
It's something that you can do. Anybody can do. Not everybody can. Like the other fancy slots, there are the thousands, and there's 7 of them, which is bullshit. Like you can't have one of those.
Yeah.
You can have a 001. All you have to do is write something good, and it is a great thing that everybody can have, and it's the easiest way to get a 3-digit number. Although it's not easy.
And everyone, at least most of the authors, whether they're just starting out or more established and have not done one yet, think about how they're going to eventually do one.
Yeah.
What's interesting is
Even Grigori.
no,
He's,
no.
he says he isn't going to, and every time he says he isn't going to, he then goes, and if I did do one.
Yeah. Well, I do have like the basic idea for what the anomaly would be. I just don't have a narrative. I don't have anything interesting to say about it. Maybe it'll come to me, but it's not a goal. Like it'll be something like with the frontispiece, with yours, that it'll be something that I write that gets, to the point where I feel like the scope is, well, actually this fits. I probably will never
That's
set
a better
out.
way.
I will never set out to do one, just because I tend to write everything stream of consciousness. I do.
You just have to get more structured the way Plague is.
Well, that's what's so funny is that we have talked about the fact that I do structure, but it's very loose. I'll do big plot points, and that's it. But the idea of creating something like multifaceted, the way that many of these articles are, I don't know. I mean, like I tripped into doing the Deva hub. Like I just did it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't plan to do it. I just was like, oh, why isn't there one? I'm gonna do it. So I have a hard time planning these things out in those ways. Anyway, all right. So we're going to talk about, I think, 8 of them. In the first one, which Plague, you picked this one, and it's a good one. Rounderhouse's proposal, the first one he did, I think.
Memento Mori.
Memento Mori, yeah. So I'm going to do a little bit of a basic setup of what it is, and then we'll kind of break it down, like why it's important to us. So this is a setup for the collection of like 13 anomalous areas within the infamous, at least within the universe, Site 01. It's kind of a mythical HQ for the O5 Council, depending on your headcanon. It comes up a lot. It comes up a lot in 001s. And it comes up a lot.
2 of the ones today.
Said no more, because it also comes up with what?
Oh, shit, and Kirby's as well, yeah.
Yeah. And it frequently features in like more so than Site 19 or Site 17, which are these famous sites that everyone was, at least early on, placing their anomalies at. This is more of like a special site. Some people say, oh, well, that's where the O5s are. That's where the O1s are. Or that's where they don't have any anomalies. It's their headquarters. It's this super secret thing. And this one is one where there are these 13 anomalous areas within the site. And they kind of represent previous overseers. And Rounderhouse used this premise to then kind of create a love letter to famous characters, oftentimes author avatars, though not always, that were like, Dr. Gears and Dr. Clef and I think Troy Lament has one, and there are other ones that are like less well known to the modern audience, but this was very much this is where we came from sort of thing. Each of these areas is dedicated to a famous SCP character having passed away. They're like previously being one of the O5 Council, which, if you remember, the O5 Council is the semi-mythical board of directors of the SCP universe who, maybe are immortal, maybe they're, but either way, they're like the Illuminati. And there's a line in there early on that's saying it became customary for new overseers to make their own additions to the mansion, because this is a rural mansion in Virginia from the 18th century, of course. It became customary for new overseers to make their own additions to the mansions as they were inducted, modifying and changing rooms to suit their needs, often with anomalous effects. And I kind of wrote down, and I think I already said this is kind of a love letter to the history of the site in a very different way than what 6500 was. And there are a lot of 001s that do this really interesting thing that are like looking back while modernizing and adding some commentary. This one's one of the I was gonna say simpler, but that's not right. Streamlined. It's got this very like streamlined idea of like, here's this concept for this character, and here's this anomalous space that kind of represents what I think the character is. What I being Rounderhouse in this case. Plague, why does this one stand out for you?
Because I crit it.
So
for
did
me,
I think we all did.
I was sorry.
I think he went to like 30 people.
Sorry, Rounder. I was a little harsh on it. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I this is my second favorite proposal. My first is Tuftos, but if I would be more, I didn't bring it because I'd be mad that I won't have the entire episode to talk about it.
Yeah, that one's dense.
Yeah. But this
We'll do that
one
in
works.
episode 4 of the 001 series.
Yeah.
Well, here's an idea. I'm sorry to cut you out. Next time
you're good.
we could take, an episode and just literally talk about 3 of them that we just want to do
could do
deep
that.
dives on.
Ooh.
Because I could never do Kalinen's justice without having 45 minutes to talk about it, I think.
Never read that one.
It's a
I have
lot.
no intention of reading that
Yeah,
one.
I know it is.
It's fucking great. But anyway.
I know Dune doesn't like it, and he's like the biggest Cullinan stan, which like scared me into not reading it for a while.
People have very strong opinions of it, but I
know it's very mixed.
love it. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so this is your second favorite. Sorry, I cut you off.
Definitely my second favorite. It just works on so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
From a presentation standpoint, this wasn't the original theme. If you go look on that page, it's a new theme for it. But it's a good theme. But ignoring that part, the immediate first thing you're presented with is that this 001 file is available for everyone to see, and they want you to read it, which is an entire diversion of what you think of when you think of 001 proposal. Literally, to go and look at that file in universe, you have to look at a what's the thing? A
Mimetic kill
agent.
Yeah. So you have this switcher, immediate great hook, and just the history that Rounderhouse was able to go into this story in a very slow, very tense manner, that it's not really the focus, because you're on this melancholy journey through this house, and just you start building up to this war that everybody went through, how it led to the Foundation being set up. You have the origins of Foundation, but at the end of the day, it's about a group of characters and giving them that love letter, yes, but I also read this as a goodbye letter, because
Totally
there
is.
are new characters
Absolutely.
being used. I would say, not to be braggadocious, but my author avatar is being used. Harry's canon is being used everywhere. Rounderhouse has his set of characters. Aliston has his set of characters. And I'd say more often I'm seeing those characters being used nowadays than I am seeing Tilda Moose or an Alto Clef. This serves as that stepping stone from the old generation to the new.
It's totally doing that. They all die. I mean, that's not a spoiler. That's right there.
It's a memorial. I mean, that's what it's called. It's Memento Mori, which, I don't remember the exact translation, but the idea is...
Remember that you will die.
Yeah. It reads, and this is not an insult, but it reads like a display at a museum about the history of the Foundation, Yep.
Definitely.
Each one of these tabs that's describing one of these rooms could be imagined as a placard, in front of one of these rooms that visitors could read up on, the origins of why they're here and what they're to be remembered for. But yeah, you're right. It is like a burying of the past, which I like. I liked a lot. I remember when Rounderhouse had me read it, I was like, it's a little too, kind of sunk into the old stuff. He's like, yeah, but that's the point, because I want to say goodbye. He literally told me, I want this to be great. Those characters are great, and we should hold them in high regard, but they're a long time ago. It's just like people don't still write books about Sherlock Holmes all the time. Obviously, there are books about Sherlock Holmes still, but there had to be new characters. It's the same reason that we evolved as a site to not just tell creepy stories about stairs that go down into forever.
Right, and you're also right that the majority of them are author avatars, and
Yeah.
they're mostly author avatars of people who aren't writing anymore. There's maybe one or two that are still writing occasionally, and there are a few that are still on staff but don't write very often, and the rest of them are completely gone. One of them is the author avatar of an author named Bijan, who has a total of 4 articles surviving on the SCP Wiki today, and he's Rounderhouse's favorite inside joke because nobody, as I said before, he's not sure anybody else even knows who that is. Almost all of these people have moved on in their lives to do other things, and the only one that I think isn't somebody's author avatar is 0502, which is David Rosen, who I think is just a character. I think every single other one of these is somebody's author avatar, and they're all in some stage of getting out of the game, although one of them is still the master admin of the SCP Wiki, because Everett Mann is in here as well.
Right.
He's not going anywhere as far as we know, but and Moose is also not going anywhere as far as we know, but the majority of these people are, and some of them are even, like I said, Clef just retired as an admin not long ago. So
yeah, the thing I really
this is sort
like
of a goodbye to an earlier era, although the Reddit will keep it alive forever.
Yeah. And I do really like that aspect of it. But like I was saying earlier, the thing that comes up a lot of times with these articles we're going to talk about is that this is a later article that looks back on aspects of the wiki that maybe weren't intentionally written as one, cohesive whole, just organically grew. And then this reframes, kind of to tell its own story. I also really, really like that there isn't like a really strong core narrative. It's there. It's kind of between the lines, like you were saying about this war, and, but I like that it really can just read as these 13 individual mini articles about this. And there's something very unique about that for 001 proposals, because most of them, even the older ones, were these grand narratives. Another one we'll talk about later is also kind of breaks that trend, but most of them do that. And it's not a complaint. That's what we expect. And that's what we want. But yeah,
this, I don't know what it's meant for.
Yeah, but I think the reason that this works so well is because the same reason that I think God's Blind Spot works, but for a different in a different execution, because it's looking back on, if not the actual origins of the Foundation, although those are touched here, it's really just talking about the origins of, like you were saying, the concept of the author avatars and the previous history of the site, and kind of framing it in this different way, this in a memorial, which is interesting in a lot of ways. It's like this decision that most of us were not writing these characters anyway, but it's got a real panache to it that I like a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of style to it, and there's sentimentality to it, and there's actually, considering how brief the individual parts are, there's a few that are a little bit tear-jerking, including one that's completely unfair, because of course the one about a dog is going to be tear-jerking. Really, I mean that's a free space, but he handled it very well. Because of course Crow is one of them.
Oh, my bad, Harry.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I still consider this to be around their house's best proposal, which will probably shoot me for, considering the amount of work he puts into.
I think I might shoot you for that.
Yeah,
Jade proposal.
Yeah, I'm gonna harshly disagree, because I think Jade is fucking incredible.
Jade is great,
and not just because I'm biased.
You're a little biased.
I know I'm very biased about anything Deva, but like he did such a fucking good job.
I'm a little biased too, because I had to do it line by line for that 40,000 word monstrosity.
I read it all too.
Yeah, I still think this is his best.
No, it's great. I mean,
it's like having saying you on, Plague.
It's like saying Dark Souls 2 is the worst Dark Souls, because it's still head and tails above every other goddamn game. So
do not engage him on this. We don't have the time.
I never get to talk about anything on my show. No, I'm just kidding.
You should have done an April Fool's episode where all you did was talk about Warhammer and Dark Souls.
Should just get him into a call and privately record him and get him going.
Make that the new episode 1.
Let's do it. It's so funny. We did that episode on the horror games because, Jackal, you and I wanted just to talk about horror games. Easily the worst performing episode. Our audience was like, nah, I'm good.
That's awesome.
But I had a fucking blast, and I can't wait to have an excuse to do video games again. Who cares?
That's fun. I can't wait to do the second one and have it be the second worst titles, or even the lowest. That's good.
Not that it still did great. I'm not complaining at all, but it was very funny. Our audience was like, no, we want to talk about SCP. Yeah, well, we want to talk about Resident Evil, so fuck off.
It's good to know that they have tastes and they aren't just bots. That's good to know.
Yeah.
If they like every episode equally, I'd be a little worried.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, do we have anything else we want to say about Memento Mori? It's very digestible. So, out of all, a bunch of these are kind of more intense in terms of length. This one's not. It really is digestible. You can read it in 15-ish minutes, 20 minutes.
It's not extremely short. It's punchy and it's easy.
Paced very well.
Yeah, it's paced great.
And also, it's one of the newer ones, surprisingly still. What is it, 2-3 years old? One of the newer ones, so you might not have read it if you are too active on the SCP Wiki, so definitely one to check out.
And it also starts Rounder's Red Tape series retroactively, I believe, so.
Yeah,
which includes SCP-6000 and some good, very, very good tales and his new 001 proposals, Gold and Jade, and later on, whatever he finally decides to call the third one or fourth one or whatever, so it's good to get in on that one. It's good stuff.
But let us move on. And it would be unfair to talk about Gold or Jade without Rounderhouse here, I think. So,
yeah, that's the same reason that I didn't pick Placeholder's proposal, because I know he would want to just natter about it endlessly. Or our secret 001 proposal together. There is no canon.
Wait, does Place have a different 001? Am I drawing a blank?
Yes,
of course. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Place. Yes, I remember now. Sorry, I quit that.
Well, I mean,
it was
part of the reason is, and this, just to quickly throw this
was
out
like
here.
first articles.
It was an early article. It was very ballsy. Yeah.
So fucking ballsy. There are several 001s that are vaguely parallel to each other. They're completely different executions and not remotely similar and not even thought of in the same way by the author. But Placeholder's proposal and McTierce's proposal both do something somewhat similar, and they take the same idea in a completely different way. And we're talking about McTierce's today, so.
Which is my absolute number one favorite 001. Which is funny because
it was the first one I read that I really, really liked.
I read it and was like, wait a minute, let me reread this literally right from the beginning, because it's not very long, and just been like, oh my god, because it says so little, but it says so much. But first, I think we're going to talk about my second favorite, which is Spike Brennan's proposal, which is God's Blind Spot. And this one is not... people are often surprised when I say this is one of my favorites. I'm not sure why. I think it's not controversial. It's still highly rated, but it's not the one
I could suggest a reason.
Why?
I think the quality of this one is in the concepts and the different kinds of articles that are in it. The crazy ass idea in it, I'd like this. The ideas are really good. It could use a rewrite. The clinical prose isn't that great.
Well, I don't really think clinical prose is very necessary for 001s, to be honest.
The regular prose isn't that great either.
Oh, that's mean.
But I really like the concepts, and that's what makes it cool.
I really like it because it was probably one of the first ones that did the historical documents folded into an SCP that I read.
Yeah, it's really good at that.
And it had a very strong influence on my earlier stuff because I did that a lot.
Well, the concepts introduced in this one are everywhere now. So
yeah, it's very influential. So what is it? The 001, the anomaly itself, is actually Site-01. Again, we're talking about Site-01. Essentially, it is found that there is one spot on Earth. This is the only place on Earth that's completely free of Akiva radiation. What the fuck is Akiva radiation? Well, Akiva radiation is essentially what the Foundation has found, and other people beyond the veil, as a measurable, objective value of the impact of the quote-unquote divine will on physical spaces. So whether or not that is Jehovah, the Judeo-Christian God, or some other deity, the point is that everywhere else on Earth, according to this article, has been touched by the divine in some way, or some being or creature. Because I in my series, I have pushed back on that pretty hard. That's not actually God's. And this is, because of that, there are certain interesting side effects. So this is a place where they have decided to build Site-01. It wasn't always there. This is just a space of a certain, I forget exactly how many square kilometers, in the shadow of Mount Sinai.
I'm sure it was cubits originally anyway.
Yes, that's true. That is, and why it's called God's Blind Spot is because this is the only spot on Earth that seems to be, out of sync with the divine. And some of the side effects, which are used in pretty funny, weird ways, is that people don't age, but not only do they not age, they don't die. So they, of course, how they test this to make sure it's real is they test it by putting various D-class through horrible termination protocols. And not just termination protocols, they also do things like cutting off a leg to see how that person survives. And the person survives great and heals really great, but when the leg is taken out of the site, it starts decaying immediately. And so because of this anomalous effect, they decide to house the O5s there. This is why this is Site 01. This is why this is the headquarters, so that the board of directors of the foundation will effectively be immortal. This is an alternative explanation for reasons why, many reasons why have been discussed, why the O5s have effectively been here for hundreds of years or whatever.
Which is really cool because the Kiva radiation shows up everywhere. That got adopted like universally, and I've never seen anyone else use this version of Site 01.
Yeah, no, that's
it's
totally
always
true.
It's always they're immortal because they drink water.
Yeah. Or they've got like some, nebulous, anomalous effect. So Akiva radiation, and I don't know about y'all, but when I read that, I immediately glommed onto that idea like this because I'm like a hardcore atheist. And like the idea that like we could objectively verify through science the impact of divine or gods on Earth means that means it's susceptible to science, which means it's not God. Yeah. And it just was immediately fascinating to me. Spike Brennan has written a few articles that are kind of along these same lines, which I find, I've always really liked his concepts. What do you guys think about this one? Other than
I did a lot. This is my first time reading it.
Oh, really?
Same,
Yeah,
actually. I knew about it, but I hadn't read it.
Yeah, I just had never touched this one. Like I said, I have not read many 001s. I probably read maybe 15 of the now 45 of them.
It would have been funny if you'd named a number lower than the number that we're looking at today. That would have been better. I've only read like 5 of them.
But before this, because I did check out every single thing.
Yeah.
I really like this one, especially like the historical document aspect, because that comes up kind of in Harry's and the Picnic Black proposal. That comes up in that one, where I love a well-crafted fake history.
Yeah,
same.
So having this, it was like perfect treat. It's really not too long, and then not going to spoil anything, but the implications of the ending I liked a lot, and then the pictures are well done, and just for like an older article like this it's like it still holds up to that.
In my opinion,
the ending especially.
The ending is excellent. Yeah, in my opinion, Metaphysician and Spike Brennan, they weren't the first to do the historical documentation thing, I don't think, but I feel like they're the ones that set the standard, where we can really talk about these weird things that are existing in modern day, but we can go back and we can read something from like Madame Blavatsky or some other famous historical figure or a famous historical period, and a document from that period that's describing it from the context and point of view of that period. And there's something I think it gets overdone a lot of times, and sometimes people don't do it well, but I've always really loved that, because I love history so much. And the idea of weird secret societies and weird anomalous things that have been around since before the modern day and just kind of stick around in the shadows has always been the reason why I like the Foundation. It's why I came here. I came here to read Eldritch Horror, which is why, as much as I dislike the person, H.P. Lovecraft, it's why I like a lot of his concepts so much. They're these things that are they're from some earlier age and they're just sticking around and they're fucking with us. And I love that. In terms of why I think this makes a good 001, first of all, it has even if the story is pretty simple, the scope of the concept is fucking huge, and it had a huge impact. I'm not sure if this was actually the first time Akiva radiation was mentioned, but this is the one that in my mind breaks it down and explains it. And it's touched on by so many different people over the years. I've used it extensively in my series, and a lot of other people have as well, because it's such an interesting, as opposed to like Hume's or any other things that come up that are the pseudoscience of the Foundation. This is one that really does a great job. Technical theology does this a lot, where, we can talk about this pseudoscientific conspiracy of the Foundation and have it address things like deities. And it just fits perfectly. And I think it does because of this concept and the expansions of this concept.
I just, since it didn't precisely come up, I also love the whole idea comes from, in the Bible, God goes to punish somebody, and inexplicably the next sentence continues without God having successfully punished this guy, which means there must be somewhere on earth God can't punish you. And that's what led to the discovery of this whole crazy friggin' thing where the angel of death can't even get in because this is God's blind spot.
There's sort of an interesting parallel to that with the origins of the mythological being of Lilith in Judaic, I don't want to say myth, but in Judaic heritage and traditions, where there's a line in the Bible that says, Adam's wife was made of the dust of the earth like him, and then the next line says, and Adam's wife was made of his sixth rib or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, early Torah scholars were like, well, that means he had two wives. Because one was made from the earth, like him, and one was made from his rib. So Eve is the second one. Who's the first? And that means it's Lilith. And we got to explain why she's not around anymore. And I love that shit. Like, I love the reverse engineering of cosmology.
All of the Abrahamic religious foundational texts are absolutely littered with revisionism and errors, sure. and two explanations given for the same thing and two sizes given for the same thing. Mm-hmm. God gives Noah two different sizes for the fucking ark. Like, it's all completely, and it really desperately deserves Torah scholars, the kind of people who are layering it.
And that's exactly what it is, because every word of that is divine. It was set down by Moses, who had a hotline to God himself. So we need every word of Genesis has to be entirely accurate. So how do we make sense of that when they contradict each other? Well, let's write whole treatises on it, and I fucking love that. And this has the same feel to it.
Yeah, so definitely read that one. And also, the ending is very, 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 very funny. There's no flies on that final note. It's terrific. Good article.
Let's see. I wanted to read one thing. By implication, since this is God's blind spot, there can be no theological consequence to an action taken within its boundaries. Although I am no physicist, our colleague, Nicola, yes, that Nicola, has described it to me as being essentially a Faraday cage for sin. I fucking love that line. It's incredible. The suitability of such a location as the headquarters of the central decision-making body of our new order should be obvious. So people are saying, whoa, the Foundation isn't bad. Well, this is the origin.
We're prepared to do all the bad things.
I do like that note. The office of the Foundation's Ethic Committee have been located in Building T01 since the committee's inception. And that's basically right after that passage. So read into that what you will. How ethical are they?
Yep.
But yeah, this is easily my second favorite. And not just because I like to be different than everybody else. It just was the first one that I read that I went, oh my god, what the fuck? That's such a crazy idea.
It is.
It's amazing.
One thing I want to point out that doesn't have to do with 001 proposal, but is a Plaguepjp writing tip. Just pick this up. I've never done this. But on the note of fake history in your writing, because I noticed this in Spike Brennan's and HarryBlank's, if you're going to write, let's say you're writing a document on World War II, you're not going to mention World War II and then explain what World War II was. Right. Everybody knows what World War II was. So in the universe, the SCP Foundation writing a document about history they went through, if they're going to have the Occult War 6, they're going to know about the 6 Occult War. You're not going to have to explain that. Maybe footnote it for the audience. But you should not be going into much depth about these anomalous events, because that's going to break your verisimilitude.
Yeah, that's the difference between organic and inorganic exposition, in my opinion. Does it make sense?
If it would come up,
does it make sense that it comes up? then that's organic. You know, it's in a conversation or whatever else. It's why we often see in science fiction and fantasy, especially in video games, protagonists that are either silent or have amnesia so that the world can be explained to them, which is annoying in a trope. But the point is that if you stop to then just explain a concept in the world and you're anyone other than Cadaver Commander, it won't work. It works in his because he's a genius. But okay, so let's talk about the Pikmin blank proposal. The front.
Hooray!
Didn't you already open a Coke? That was so quick.
I always have 2 Coke. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm very thirsty because we're talking about me, and I'm always thirsty.
So, as opposed to saying why we picked this, and you kind of touched on this before, but like, this is going to sound weirdly, interestingly accusatory, and Plague, be ready because I'm going to ask you the same question. Why did you write it? Like, not this doesn't deserve to be an 01, but like, that's the joke. But you know, why did this? You know, other than explaining the initialism, because this is a, you know, this goes back. This also has incredible historical scope and tells, you know, one hell of an epic story.
It is very long.
I loved it.
I'm not even talking about the length, though. It is one of your long boys. But I'm just talking about like this. You know, this goes back to, you know, what the all the way back to the 30s, I think.
Oh yeah, it goes back to, I think, just
like before
the World War.
Right. Okay.
It's mostly in the 60s, 70s, and 80s is when it takes place. So it's a period piece,
and it's a huge focus on one of my favorite characters that you've made, which is Thylosis. Just the best.
So I guess I should probably explain what this thing is, since I could probably do it the most tersely, because I wrote half of it. It was a very equitable partnership. Also, Ip and I wrote just about half of this article each.
Nice.
So it's set in On Guard 4-3, which is the canon that myself and my friends have created, centered around Site 43 in Canada. And there's a lot of memetics in it, because there's a couple of ancient memetic societies, which are called cryptomancers in this, because it's set in the 60s, so all the terminology is different, who've been fucking with the Foundation. I really like it. I actually like it better than memetics. I wish I was using it more often. I think I have just started throwing it into modern day articles because it's more fun to say. They've been fucking with the Foundation for a long time for their own reasons that will eventually come up in more 001 proposals. But this is them during the Cold War taking advantage of the paranoia of the whole world about everything, particularly spy stuff and the East versus West stuff, to try and destroy the Foundation. And they're trying to destroy it by making it super hyper visible. They're trying to bring down the veil of secrecy. And the Foundation's response to this is to try to get access to memetics, which they don't have. It hasn't been invented yet in this version of the setting. There's lots of different versions of the origins of pretty much anything in SCP. But they know about cryptomancy because there's other people doing it. And they are trying to create themselves some cryptomancy to hide from all of this scrutiny. They're trying to find a way to make their safe houses safe again. They're trying to find a way to keep it so the governments who know who they are don't know where they live. And the way that they do this is they start trying to reverse engineer cryptomancy using a variety of characters that I bring in from my canon and Ip brings from his imagination, and in some cases from SCP roleplay that used to be popular on IRC. And they reverse engineer memetics in order to create an intervention in the human collective unconsciousness that prevents people from connecting anything with the initialism SCP with the Foundation, which explains why they're able to have all these front companies. It doesn't make it easier for people to tell it's them. It makes it impossible for people to tell that it's them. But there's a moral implication to it, because they're fucking with the brains of the whole human race to make this happen. And the question is, do we even deserve to be protecting ourselves if this is the kind of thing we're willing to do for our own purposes? And it's a big, epic, fucking James Bond's planet-spanning adventure. I'm writing short little scenes about my characters hashing it out. Ip's writing crazy-ass Cold War historical details. There's a giant pile of Cold War era world building thrown into it, and I enjoyed it so much I started thinking it was so cool that I started making pictures to show the different front companies and doing a lot of photoshopping. I ended up doing so much photoshopping that it was my most Photoshop heavy article, which is really saying something. And it was that until 7,000, which I think blew it completely out of the water in that respect. But there's a ton of front company images, probably like 24 of them. And we made up all these front companies. We had a great deal of fun. We used a whole bunch of ones that other people had created as well. And we made a few that are inside jokes. And really, it was just a lot of fun. It was one of the easiest collaborations, even though it's so incredibly long. It's over 20,000 words, I'm almost sure. I can't remember exactly the length of it anymore. But it was not hard to do. It's very, very dense. It's very, very long. But it didn't feel like that while we were working on it.
The fucking images are so fucking good in this.
Thank you.
It's all good, but I remember you just showing me each one as you came up with them, just like shooting me a message and be like, look at this one. It's like, wait, how many are you going to have? As many as I want. And they're just so, and it's just so great. I mean, like at one point the image is just split into 4 and you just have 4 examples. But like you said, there's a lot of Photoshopping in it, but there's a lot of incredibly convincing Photoshopping. There's one of these that's on a corrugated, sliding door, like for a garage or a storage space, and you actually see the corrugations come through, which you would if it was spray painted. Or Silly Crab Productions, which is on this really kind of fucked up concrete surface, and it's aged, and it's done in such a way that it really believably looks like it's been aged. Or the Swan Corbett publishing company.
The Swan Corbett one is my favorite.
It's incredible because it's all individual tiles in this very old, like avant-garde, not avant-garde. It doesn't matter. But like 1920s style sign that somebody might have made, like on the sidewalk outside someone's store.
Yeah, the letters are made out of tiles, and the top line of tiles is fake, and the bottom line of tiles is real, and still looks about right to me looking at it again. I think I managed to fake that one. That one's my favorite. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad.
There's so many good ones here because it's like Suds Clean and Polish, Storage Concepts PLC.
A lot of these were pre-existing. We also made up a whole ton of them.
South Coast Properties.
Swan Corbett is a reference to authors.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No. Southern Camping Partnership, Sheldon County Park. I mean, they're so fucking good.
South Coast Properties is Storm Breaths. A few of these were from Fritz Willie, the administrator. That's the Suds Clean and Polish one, I think, and the South Cheyenne Point.
And I'm sure
there's an awful lot with South in them because that's the first thing people think of.
Honestly, my favorite is the Shell Construction Partnership because it is so convincingly behind a piece of glass with the reflections on it. I now know how this works, but I remember when you first showed me and I just went, what? How'd you do that?
That one really does work. I'm
impressed.
Very pleased with that one.
So if we have, I'm sure we have mentioned it before because we've talked about the canon a bunch. Ip's canon, well, basically his canon. He wasn't the one that started it, but he's done 90% of the work.
It's
S&C Plastics, that's another example of this initialism.
And this is both. That's the thing. This is a far comes into it far less, but this is an On Guard 4.3 SNC Plastics 001.
Excuse me.
For sure.
But
and that is the very first one that shows up in the images is the SNC Plastics one.
Is it?
And of course, it's got an esoteric class because how could it not?
Oh, it sure does. SNC Plastics.
No, I mean the very first image has SNC Plastics.
No, I just had skipped it on accident. I really. This does a really good job of being. Yeah, sure, it's long, but it is, like a lot of yours, just incredibly readable. It's not worried about. You don't have a problem getting people lost with pseudoscience, despite the fact that you are playing with some pretty out there concepts.
There's some fucking crazy pseudoscience in there. And special shout out to Pentagon for helping to come up with all of that and doing the ridiculous graphics for the particle breakdowns of grammar particles.
Wait, did he actually help on that? That's so funny.
Oh yeah, Pentagon helped to define the grammar particles, the infamous now grammar particles, which define how the specific version of memetics might work, and made the diagrams for us, and deeply appreciate it because it's so fucking stupid. We had so much fun with it. I love it.
It's great.
Oh god.
My favorite
yeah, these are
image
great.
looking through now has to be the one with the Scouts cargo packing on the truck. A picture of the truck I love, first off, even
It's a
without
nice
the
truck.
logo. And then the logo just adds to it.
I like that one. That's a cool looking truck.
It is. It's nice.
Really
retro.
is.
I like the SCP on the front of it as well.
Yeah, that too.
I spent a lot of time on that shit.
But, yeah, I can tell. But the reason this one stands out to me, and I mean, it's not the only article that you've done that centers on Thyloswist. I'm saying that
They're
wrong.
all
I'm
long.
sure. They're all long, but this is like his. This is his article in a lot of ways. Even though a lot of your characters show up, and it goes back into like the earlier stages of your setting, but it really is like, hey, let's really break down what this cryptomancy is, what the memetics is, which is something that had been, rearing its head in your stories for a while. But this is I would say one of the best examples. Like, this is the one that really made me go, oh, I get what you're saying. This isn't magic in the traditional sense. This is not, you're not putting illusions on stuff. This is really messing with like the cognition and the way that people like perceive things. It's really great. But we just suggest people read it because I can't summarize it. It's a long boy.
Yeah. I read it today. I went through it pretty fast.
Yeah, it flows really well. Like, it's got excellent pacing.
It was a very fun collaboration, and I am glad people have enjoyed it.
If you can tell, Harry really likes getting compliments.
I do. I do. I'll be honest. I do.
Everyone does. But did you want to say anything else before we moved on?
Nah, if I think of something, I'll just blurt it out in the middle of another conversation.
Good.
That's my style, man.
As one does.
Okay, so the most... Wait, no, I don't think it's the most recent, because this one came out before yours, right, Blake?
Which one?
Davy Fools? I think it came
There's
out
been one more in between.
Okay, but not on our list.
No,
So this is one of the two that is very recent in the last few months. Dave You Fool, who we've talked about extensively, and we are big fucking end of the world fans of.
Love Davey Fool.
I haven't read anything by him that I haven't adored. His book series is amazing. All of his articles are amazing. The funnest part is there are Easter eggs in this SCP article that connect to his novels, which is fuck you, man. If you're listening, fuck you. With love. I love you, but fuck you. Anyway,
this is the article.
The other day. Happy birthday, Davey Fool.
Yeah, it is.
Happy birthday, Davey Fool. This is the article that just completely typifies the idea that a 001 can be the culmination of an author's whole body of work. Because it's all in here. Corbinic's in here. Totally Soft is in here. It's all in here.
Yeah, I mean, if you are somewhat aware of Stephen King and how he wrote lots and lots of books, but like his actual opus was the Gunslinger Saga and the Dark Tower stuff, this feels like that, where it's like, here in this story, all the things I have touched in my creative mind get to pop their head up and are relevant. It's not just a shout out.
Yeah, as a bonus, the ending doesn't suck.
I actually, well, we can have that.
No, yeah, let's not talk about Stephen King.
I don't think that. But
here.
This is Ulysses S. Fool's proposal, Last Ride of the Day.
I love the title. It's a great title.
It's a fucking ridiculously good title. So this was brought up when we did Prometheus Labs. Why didn't we talk about this? And the reason is it's really dense.
It's so long and crazy. Every sentence is so crazy.
Yeah, when I say dense, I'm not saying it has a lot of ideas, which it does. It's that every line is worth repeating. Almost literally every line, even the setup lines, are so fucking funny or weird or just like, what the fuck just happened?
This is one of the funniest things on the entire season.
It's incredible.
And
it's
just funny shit on the Wiki.
And I just reread it again today. And I was like skimming it the other day when I was taking notes, and I was like, I'm just going to reread it right now. It's just fucking so good.
I reread it last night, and I did not have time to reread it last night. I reread it last night when it was 8 hours before. I started when it was 8 hours before I had to get up, and I started reading anyway. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I guess I'm getting 6 hours of sleep tonight because I just couldn't stop reading it. It's so much fun.
It's so good. So just some basic setup. I'm not going to go into the deep spoilers, but this one I want to go a little bit more in depth in because it is so outlandish that I just want to kind of set it up. So it is one of those articles that it does multiple iterations. At the end of the page, you click a link and it becomes something else. Yep.
List pages, yeah.
And so this starts off with SCP-001 is an experimental vehicle created by Prometheus Labs, who designated it Project Backaway, which is the fucking stupidest name. But in the way that like Prometheus Labs is always doing shit like
Project. It looks better in all caps.
Just Project fucking Frankenstein or something, like the ones that we were reading in those Prometheus Lab GOI documents where you're just like, what was that? What was Project Cappuccino? Like what? And this is 100% time machine shenanigans, but that is not I cannot believe that he starts off by saying this is about time machines, and this article, although it does rely on the concept of time machines, this is not just a time machine article. This is not about time travel. It is fucking insane.
No.
So a line currently the only I'm just gonna read this verbatim because it's so funny. Currently, the only operable console functions of the anomaly are internal lighting, cockpit air conditioning, maintenance, movement, AM/FM radio, a word processor, Spider Solitaire, and the hunt for Mr. Swinky, part of the short-lived Mr. Swinky series of computer games included with Prometheus Lab software as an added bonus. This is in the fucking clinical language describing the time machine. Why the fuck is there an AM/FM radio? especially how this time machine works and how it shoots you so far back that for most of the time that this is in operation, that AM/FM radio will be useless to you because there's no such thing.
I didn't think of that. The way this time machine works is it immediately sends you 15,000 years into the past. So the radio doesn't do anything. That's fucking good. I didn't think of that. It was even funnier shit. I didn't think of it.
It's just that I just noticed that on this when I just reread it today. I was like, wait, why the fuck is there a radio in this thing?
Reread bonuses, man.
So the initial page is very short. It's just about this time machine. You click on the link, and then it becomes a fucking end of the world scenario with SCP-UBU, and it refers to a violent and extremely hostile humanoid entity that appeared in something Greenland. I'm not going to try and pronounce that on May 12th, 2588. And if this isn't
pick that city name just so you couldn't pronounce it.
I know, 100%. If this is not the Strider Queen, like I know it's not, but like in my brain, you know how the three moons initiative
yeah, that's
article?
what I thought it was in my first read.
And I mean I still in my head say it is because it was on the way to Earth, you know, and it was going to get there eventually because they accidentally killed her, and then so now because she was killed in their universe, she's immortal in ours.
If she's worse than this, then that's impressive, because this thing, Ubu, is the absolute fucking worst.
The absolute worst, but also genuinely funny.
So fucking funny.
The way it says the protagonist's name is so fucking good. Beetles. So this is basically traveling to different timelines. Because of the way that this time machine works, not only does it take you back 15,000 years in the past, it creates a new timeline, which, you know, makes sense if you understand the way that those things work. So every time that this time machine is activated, essentially a new timeline is started. It will probably go the same way unless whoever did the time travel makes things happen. When SCP-UBU appeared, it coincided with an ongoing Omega class /A augmented end of death scenario. But this is not like the canon end of death, because in this situation, people heal from their horrible things. So at one point we have, and this goes, there's a timeline on this second page that goes all the way up into the year 3030. The main character throughout the rest of the article is an 05. I think it's 0511. Michus and they at one point say, once you become immortal and you've had a few heart attacks, it's just like a whole body sneeze. Which is the best line. And when Ubu appeared, there are these crazy changes to the status quo. It's implied the Three Moons is out of commission. It's implied that the Fae are out of commission. That the Wanderer's Library just said like, "Peace, we're out," and just closed all the portals. They closed all the portals to Earth because the creature is is unstoppable. Nothing can cause it damage except for the only lasting damage, which occurred on August 14th, 784, when the entity chewed off its left thumb out of apparent curiosity.
And then it screamed for like 3 days or something like that. My favorite one is when SCP-UBU reached Columbus, Ohio, and then spent the next year on the following project, digging a 2-kilometer deep hole in the center of the city, gathering 2.9 million people to throw into the hole, repeatedly leaping into the upper stratosphere and stomping into the hole, and drinking the resulting squeezed juices.
Oh, God damn it.
So basically the whole world just becomes a playground for this complete piece of shit that just runs around giggling, doing nonsense.
And doing horrible stuff because he thinks it's funny.
Because he thinks it's funny and he enjoys it. And people can't die.
You and me on this website.
Yeah. On September 9th, 2673, SCP-UBU spends 73 days rubbing its crotch against the Statue of Liberty while howling. It should be noted that SCP-UBU lacks any sort of visible genitalia.
So that's good.
So we go through this crazy timeline where the world is just completely destroyed. Now everyone can live. So this is like they've turned into Corbinic in that you heal from any of these horrible things that happens, and like society falls apart at some point. The world is completely flooded, and there's like a floating civilization called New Zonkland. Like it's just insane. And the only person keeping their shit together, other than a couple of other O5s, is O511, who decides they're going to break into storage and start stealing shit to try and make a difference. And how they decide to do that is by using this time machine, which I guess has just been in containment for this whole time. And stealing a couple of the replicator pods from SCP-2000 that I guess they just had extras in storage. And what follows is just an insane epic wherein this person travels back in time 15,000 years and then lives through all that time and then continues to do this pattern trying to figure out the right way to handle this horrible thing. And I don't want to say much more about the second half of the article because it's just so fucking insane. But I will say, when they get to finally describing how the time machine works, in the language included with the document, SCP-001 is capable of temporally relocating to its relative position 15,000 years prior to activation. This temporal displacement is divergent/paradox irrelevant. In other words, a separate timeline is created as a landing point. For example, if an occupant from timeline X were to murder their parents in utero in timeline Y, the Y iteration of the occupant would no longer exist, but the occupant themselves, being from X, would be unharmed. It's explained so simply, and then you realize it's just ludicrous.
And it's oddly bloodless description too, because the way that they are leaving each timeline is that timeline isn't going to be around anymore.
Right.
We talk about exactly how that means, and what that means in the context of the article is that this article, which is comedy, some of the Corbinic stuff does this. The Clusterfuckalypse article does this for me too, where it's so funny, but it's also so horrifying at the same time. Yeah. It's this weird, feverish, too hot in my brain kind of like, this is really funny, but it's also really, really awful what's happening. The body count in this comedy article is like a quadrillion.
More. Because he goes through like 700 iterations. And every single one of those ends in the complete death of the world in more and more original and unique ways, most of the time for the fault of this O5, who's been living this whole time and transferring themselves into different bodies. It's just fucking insane. My favorite...
15,000 years.
That is...
My bad, Grigori.
No, you're fine. My favorite that is not a giveaway because it's just like a toss-away line is at some point this O5 decides the way to handle this is that when this creature appears... and they've been sitting around in this universe for 14,000 years or whatever it is, in 2688 or whatever it is. They're going to mess with the gravity of the moon so that it crashes into Greenland where it shows up. This leads to the destruction of the Earth. But the record is such that we cannot decide whether or not SCP-UBU was affected. And then notes, ineffective. No, like results, ineffective. Next iteration.
This is not a good way of doing this. What were you going to say about it, Blake?
It's just like if you like you were saying, think about it. The civilization's only been around for like 6,000 or 7,000 years. So it's literally every single person is just vanishing. The record of them vanishing. So it's hundreds of billions of people just dying. And then the next time it starts over. And
because it's creating a new universe every time it does a jump.
All those too.
So it's not like it resets those deaths. This person is responsible for the death of the human race 700 times.
But even worse, because it's destroying the timeline, it's destroying the universe, which means it's actually destroying like a multi-Googleplex of sentient things in the universe. Right. So but it's still really funny. It's like the blackest of comedy.
Yeah. It's incredible. There's crazy plot twists later on, which what we've told you so far is literally told in the first half. It's insane. It's a long article. It is, but it pays for it. Like there's never a scene in this thing that I go, I mean, at one point SCP-076 shows up, and it's not bullshit.
And it's not terrible. It's actually good.
Yeah, it's great. Fuck. I love it so much.
Great article.
I will say about Dave's writing, the audience, a lot of you guys probably have read HarryBlank's stuff, and you know how that, especially in the On Guard 4-3 canon, reference itself very heavily. So AV Fool stuff does that a lot as well, because we've all read all of his things.
Yes.
AV Fool is a master of just blending these 3 or 4 concepts that only he writes and only he is capable of writing to the top degree. And he just blends them so seamlessly with each other. It's done very, very well. So if you're into that, check out the 001 proposal and check out his other writing so you understand everything.
Yeah, I think it was like episode 3 or 4 that we talked about.
It was 4 because, of course, it wasn't 3.
Oh, that's right. I think it's 3 now.
Hey, fix that. But the fifth isn't one.
But now the fifth isn't the fourth. Yeah. But the 3 Moons Initiative, which we talked about at length, just Harry and I in that older episode, exuberantly my favorite stuff on the wiki. And to be honest, it's better than most of the books I've read.
Yep. Davey Fool's is easily one of my all-time favorites, and it's new.
He has such a world picture. Worked out in his head.
Corbinick alone. Corbinick alone, just the first Corbinick article could be the basis of an epic, science fiction pulp novel series, and instead he turns it into like one crazy, unpredictable, brilliant joke article after another that are still horrifying. And I mean, knowing and loving his stuff is what made me eventually think that something like Victim was possible to balance. It's not the same by any means, but that balancing of like the unsettling, the uncomfortable laugh, and making that work on a consistent basis. And Davey Fool is just fucking incredible.
Also goes back to my point on writing fake history in the SCP document, because after Davey Fool writes the article that sets up what you need to know, he will never explain it again. So he expects you to be like, oh, that makes sense because that's going on in Corbinick, and that's an element of the story that I am connecting to that. So he's expecting you to do that.
He's one of the few authors that when he does a hot link to an earlier article, and most of the time I would click through to those just to remind myself, okay, what is it we're referring to? And I'll just read very briefly the description, and I'm like, oh, right, okay, I got this. Usually with his, I then just stop and read that article entirely and then go back. Because it's worth it every single goddamn time.
Can't go wrong with Davey Fool.
But let's move on. So
a shorter one. To a much shorter one.
Much shorter.
To the shortest one we've done.
And I think the shortest one, no, not the. It's I think
not remotely. Lily's proposal is far, far shorter.
Yeah, that's right. Kate McTierris's proposal. Kate McTierris, who is a brilliant author on the Wiki and did a lot of really interesting stuff, showed me that it was possible to do video in a believable way in an article. Thank God, because otherwise I wouldn't have known how to do that. Kate McTierris's proposal is titled A Record, and this is the least epic scope SCP that I'm aware of. Except for it actually has implications that are pretty insane. So it starts pretty innocent. SCP-001 is a vinyl record containing the Esquivel's 1958 album Exploring New Sounds in Stereo, in parentheses by RCA. The album has an anomalous impact on digital numerical lists that contain it. The album, when listed in text, saved digitally, will always be listed first, even if it was intended to be listed in another position. So that's why this is the 001. Not because it's so important, not because it's the origin of the Foundation, but because literally because of the anomaly, it has to be 001.
Yep.
The reason that the Foundation found it was because it was consistently at the top of the Billboard charts. Researcher starts noticing that this is one of these ones that has different iterations, but because the SCP itself is so short, just a few paragraphs, the changes each time are very minimal. So it'll be her subtracting a sentence, and then that'll be crossed out in red, or it'll be adding something, and then that'll be in green, and then you kind of watch as this thing progresses. And what she starts to notice pretty early on is that if something is added, that thing is then now having an impact on reality. For example,
becomes true.
Right. So, as an example, the earliest one, which is not a spoiler, she includes in the containment procs, everyone, this is paraphrasing, everyone must give researcher blank $5. And then they do. And we get to see her go, what the fuck? Why is everyone giving me $5? And then she quickly deletes it.
For clarity, that was Mary Nakayama, not me. Blank is my name, so it's a little confusing.
Sorry.
It took me a moment.
Yeah.
Her name is Mary Nakayama.
Yeah, I just forgot her name for a second.
That's what I'm here for, man. I'm here to interfere and also occasionally, very rarely, to help.
And give history for the wiki, which I often don't look into. So if you can kind of extrapolate outwards to the logical extreme, you could probably imagine where this article goes. And because it's so short, I don't want to say much more than this. But this is absolutely my favorite 001. It is the one that showed me, and unfortunately not a lot of people have gone this route. In some ways, Rounder Houses kind of does. That it's a very approachable, very simple idea that can be extrapolated out into this sort of mind-blowing thing. It doesn't have the big influence on other articles on the site, but I'm constantly holding this one up as you can do anything as an 001. And do it well, because this is fucking great.
Definitely one of the ones that just punches you in the gut.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, by the end, which I won't give away, by the end, it's just like, wait, what the fuck did I just read? And not in a horrifying way, but in this really like, wow, like when you read a really impressive science fiction story, or you watch, one of the few science fiction movies that's not just the same idea over and over again. And you like when you walked out, I don't know if you guys have seen Dark City. This one really gives me a similar vibe where it's like, it starts off as a very approachable, fun idea. And then by the end, you're like, oh, what is this about?
Yeah, it explodes tremendously. Like I said, this one and placeholders both start from a similar point, which is
sure.
If the 001 slot is special, how special is it? And what does that mean? Where placeholders is kind of like the meta McTierris's proposal, in the same sense that actually Debut Fools is like meta Mackenzie's proposal, because Mackenzie's is the one about the administrator restarting reality to try to fix the problem.
Yeah.
But Debut Fools takes that concept and just makes it completely fucking bonkers to the point where I'm not even sure he was aware that somebody had already done a sort of low-key version of it, and they all stand together so well because it's all about execution. You can take a crazy concept like this and you can do it in a short form, which is McTierris' proposal, and it works. You can do it in a long form like placeholder, and it works. You can explode it out into a comedy, like Dave You Fool did, and also make it horrifying, or you can do it as the standard horror thing, which is how Mackenzie's works. There's quite a few of them that take a very similar concept, but different authors who know what they were doing, and you have to know what you're doing. If you're going to do a 001, we'll execute them so differently that they're all worth having together.
I mean,
let's more than one 001 about the same entities.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and let's talk about the fact that a time loop is one of the most trod, tropes in a modern science fiction. Maybe not in the classic science fiction, but it's something that's been touched on a lot. And this is just, and that one is such a completely unique way. It's the same thing of like, well, what if, we've talked about before that if we had known something was like this that was out, like close to the thing that we eventually did, maybe we wouldn't have done it. But
yeah, and all of these are valuable to have. It would be terrible if they weren't here. Also, Swans and Pickmans. Yeah, they're both versions of the same idea. Pickmans is self-admittedly a different version of the same idea.
Right.
It's very cool to have them all working together because it makes them all tie together in a more interesting way as well.
Anyway,
see different people taking the same approach and just running completely different directions with it.
I think that this one is a really excellent example of how to write in a really constrained way, because even the length that it isn't actually its length, because most of the time the new iterations are the same thing you've just read. You're just looking for differences. So I would bet that out of original words in combination to make paragraphs, etc., I would doubt that this is more than like 1,500 words.
No, this is probably about 1,000 words. This whole article, I would think.
And it has, and I'm constantly thinking about it. So if that doesn't tell you,
this is the first, like I said, this is the first one out of the 001s where I read it and went, oh, that's good. This was my first favorite 001 for sure.
It's one of the ones I hadn't read as well. This was also a very pleasant surprise.
You had not read it before?
I hadn't, no.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of her writing. Unfortunately, she moved on to other things, but everything I've ever read by her has been great. But this is the one that's just like, this really feels special, and it feels special in a different way than any of the other 001s do. It's just truly inspired. Anyway, let's stop procrastinating.
Which is just a perfect segue.
Yeah,
into Plague's
proposal, titled "The Ones That Got Away." I'm just gonna let you kind of go deep, but I just wanted to say that I love the concept of this. These are just all failed concepts for 001s. They're not all. I know that they were, for the most part, they were articles. But the way it's presented is your character, your author avatar, Paul Legge, is trying to, as a new director, and then eventually it's deeper into his career, present these things as 001s, these different ridiculous scenarios.
So why don't we let him pitch it? Because we let me pitch mine.
That was all. You literally cut me off to stop me from saying the end of my sentence.
Yeah, because you're taking his thing. It's his thing. Let him introduce it.
No, I'm not. This has gone on way too long. Plague, go ahead.
The Cole's notes. You didn't Cole's know mine.
Okay. This proposal is about containment failure, which somehow became the thing I write about a lot since my 7,000 article was also about containment failures. But this article is about a pervasive anomalous phenomenon affecting the entirety of the SCP Foundation that manifests as the failure to contain or maintain containment of anomalous entities. So what does that mean? So basically, out of universe, when you're writing on the SCP Wiki, you have a little rating module at the top of the page. And that could go up if it's good, and that will go down if it's not so well written.
Oh yeah, that's a one-to-one relationship. Sure.
Yeah, that's exactly how that works too.
If your article gets to -10, it can be deleted, and then on top of that, you can also self-delete your own articles. So starting out, I had written around 5 articles before I'd say I got my stride. And all those articles are now deleted because I didn't think they represented me well. They didn't do well rating-wise, and I just didn't want to have that on there because I know when I first joined, I was starting from the beginning of an author's journey and was going up, and I did not want someone's first 5 impressions of me to be those pieces of writing. So that was the reason I deleted them. And then I was just thinking about these deleted ideas, and I hate wasting an idea. I have a bunch of articles that never get finished that I try to toss into my articles. If you've read 7001, which is about Site 18, there's a part of it where a few agents get trapped and they're stuck listening to the first few seconds of Eye of the Tiger or something along. Or no, it was the last few minutes of Hey Jude where they're just repeating Hey Jude.
That's right.
So that was a JamCon article I had written and deleted. And then in one of my one of my shit posts that I posted recently called Chat SCP, there is a part of that where somebody needs a document generated for them about this cowboy that's made out of spaghetti. And the Spaghetti Cowboy article, which the guy's name was Spaghetti Jones, was something that I've been wanting to write for a while, but I never got it done. This is probably from August of 2020. I've had a draft that I just never finished. So using the deleted articles is something I really like to do. And then another thing I like to do is something that I've coined to myself called reverse pataphysics, where you take an element of the outside writing world and you apply it to how the Foundation reacts inside. Me and Harry did that with SCP-7525-X about the Slot Goblin. The frontispiece is similar to that. I think SCP-7003, which is the Three White Horses, has a concept called the Footnotes in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that concept. Some of my favorite to read because it's so there's always a fun way you could spin something in universe to see how the Foundation reacts, and that's always a fun concept. So these deleted articles weren't deleted in universe; they just broke containment, and they could never be contained. So this article is my capstone, I'd say. For me personally, and I might catch some flack for this, I think everybody should only have 1001, and it should be something you should be okay retiring on. That's just how I always viewed the slot from joining the website, so that's what I wanted this to be for me. And I think I did it pretty well, and it wouldn't have happened without the help of everybody with me throughout the entire process, but I really am very happy with how this turned out. So I want to let you guys ask me some questions because I could just ramble on, but get me on some topics.
Well, I was going to say that this very much feels like a culmination of the comedic articles you've been writing over the last year and a half or so. Like, you know, whether it's the All Cat Boys, you know, and the various articles that I love so much, that everyone loves so much, or, you know, the one about the ghostly miners, you know, what's his name, the Gumball, Percival,
Quincy Harrison,
Quincy
the
Harrison,
third.
that's right.
Jeffrey.
And how like ridiculous those get, and then the way that you were able to use these concepts that you didn't feel were executed enough, or well enough, or whatever, and for whatever reason you didn't want to continue with them, and reutilizing those to like then tell this story that I think in some ways, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like this is kind of almost autobiographical in a very specific way.
Definitely.
In a specific way about your journey as a writer on the wiki and probably outside of the wiki as well. Because like Paul, you know, your author avatar, when he starts off, you know, it's very clearly, you know, kind of a representation of the early experience as an author, as somebody who is first getting their ideas and putting them out in front of people and going, I don't know, I don't feel that confident about this. And I just think it works so well. Not only because it's really, really funny, genuinely funny, like almost everything that you've written for that purpose. But it also, there's like these moments of like unsettling creep factor. There's this paragraph, which I love so much, which is from that first iteration. I think it's 5770. Which is the in-universe designation of this failed concept. During the 1988 investigation, agents attempted a pacifistic route of cordoning off the entrance to the SCP, gathering place and instituted quarantine orders to city residents. This culminated in a mass of over 100,000 Florentines attacking Foundation personnel in what appeared to be a planned attack. Agents were slaughtered, cannibalized, and their remains were tossed into the nearby Arno River.
Yeah. This This article, I don't even know what I was thinking. But I actually wrote it. It was 14,000 words long in its first draft. I did, if anyone is interested in the audience, if you check out this article and go to the discussion at the bottom of the page, I did write like an 8 or 9 paragraph autobiography.
It's a great
on accident. Yeah. Just to give some background, but this was FCP-5770 was the first ever SCP slot I had taken, and it was my first ever article, and it was inspired by Dante's Inferno. So it of course had that classic cliche like religious hook to it. You had a Foundation agent getting attacked and then leaving the Foundation, like very standard SCP investigation document. You had a D-class going in and dying, then MTF agents, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. But place in my heart, even though it was never near where I wanted it to be, I was never able to rewrite it. I lost that slot eventually after deleting it. So turning that into something that made my 001 proposal kind of made this much more special for me in that way.
I bet.
And then I while this was still a comedic article, that article 5770 was more horror geared. So I still wanted to keep elements of that while also keeping the lighthearted tone, which is something that I've learned to balance in clinical tone, where you have something ridiculous, and then once again you think of the implications, and you're like, wow, that's kind of disgusting. That's kind of terrifying.
There's a reason why every victim thing that I have written, I've had 2 people read it. Sometimes more. Harry and you.
Yeah.
Does this work? Is this a balance of the fucking ridiculous with unsettling?
Yeah.
You did that so well in this 001 too.
Oh my god, yeah.
You brought in most of my favorite things that you've written, and one thing that's written by Dune, Death Knight,
Mm-hmm.
Death Knife, his rewrite of that article. I can never remember the name of the original author of Death Knife. You used all of these hilarious characters to such hilarious effect, because you're not just using the SCPs that you had deleted or the SCPs that you deleted, you're also using the ones that survived. And so, of course, this is just a big celebration of all the stuff that you do. Hog Slice is in there. Death Knight Damien is in there and has far and away the best line you've ever written in anything, which was shit him. Please tell me I'm not giving you credit for something you got from somebody else.
No, I made that. Yeah,
that is so fucking fun. Shit him.
It's funny how go ahead, Harry. Go ahead.
And Quincy, and also Scordo. I believe is Scordo in there.
I don't think he is. There's the Ocean Kraken guy is very inspired by Scordo.
Yeah, it's a similar vibe.
I fucking love Scordo.
Yeah, it's funny because like. I did say I came in with a plan, but at the same time, this thing kind of formed itself.
Sure.
Because when I originally wrote this, I was very inspired by Memento Mori. That was like the main thing I was kind of like on a structural level focusing on. Because if I don't know if you saw it, Grigori, but Harry saw when I was still using tabs.
Yeah.
No, you had gotten rid of that by the time you showed it to me.
So I originally had just the entire document was just the description, and then the 5 or 6 tables I had, or the 5 or 6 tabs of the table that were just the anomalies, and then it was going to be some sort of description of what happened from my author avatar. And that didn't work, because I wasn't fully committing to like the Memento Mori style, because while I was taking inspiration, I didn't want it to be an exact copy. I didn't want someone to be like, hey, this is just formatted exactly like Memento Mori, because that would have hurt. And then the other thing was that from a story level, it wasn't working, because I'm just tossing a bunch of shit at you and not giving you a connective through line. So the next thing is where I took it was, got a lot of criticism on SCP-7001 about my Overseer characters, which they were all correct, even though I didn't want to see it at the time. They're indistinguishable. You can't tell them apart. They're not fun to read. So my next idea was turning this into a SCP-001 dissertation, like a doctoral dissertation.
Yes.
So that was my next idea, and that's where this really started to coalesce. And that, I think, kind of led to it becoming an analog for myself as a writer. Like, another thing that kind of just happened was the 10 minutes late sequence. So, not a spoiler, but if you read at the beginning, it starts with my author avatar being 10 minutes late to his presentation. That was just something I wrote because I wanted to have, like, a cover page with the title on it, so I needed an excuse to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And then that turned into the ending, which I really, really loved in this piece because of how everything kind of connected together. It was a nice twist. Once again, no spoilers, please read it. But yeah,
Absolutely,
it all kind of came together on accident in a way. And through the help of my friends, Harry Rounder, I got like you, Grigori, I got like 20 people to look at this. Yeah, it coalesced really, really well, and I could not be happier with it. If I deleted my account and left the site forever tomorrow, I'd be happy this was the last thing I posted. And I don't know how I'm going to top it.
I mean, it is honestly so good.
That's always rough when you do something kind of, I don't know, milestone-y. You know, like, you know, for a long time after we did 60-100, I was like, well, what the fuck?
Yep.
I was talking to Rounder about it. I was like, what do you do after Memento Mori? And he was like, it took me months, man. And I remember it, too.
But I feel like we're gearing down. So I wanted to point out that I am still upset that the snails is not their own article.
I know.
I think it's an incredible idea, both from an aspect of it's ridiculous, it's absurd, the concept, but like the one where it's like different stars hanging out in a nightclub, like you could do something like really poignant with this absurd thing about snails having a race every year.
Yeah,
I love it.
The original
so much.
idea for that, I promised some trivia. I will give a few bits trivia. So the original idea for that snails article was me being bored in IRC. I hadn't written anything for a while. And so I was like, you know what? I went on a random word generator and popped out 5 words. And one of them was snail. One of them was like pyramid. And then there were a few other words that I just kind of tossed in the article that became like designation names. So that's where that article was kind of birthed from. I was like,
that's
a snail race on the pyramids. And then I think another word was like dimension. So that's where I got like the idea for like them having abilities. Let me think. What else do I have? So the final article that's about the Kraken, that's the one that's like different from the original source. The original source sucks. It's so bad. It is the worst thing I have ever put to writing. It is so absolutely abysmal. It was my only thing that's ever come close to deletion. I think it languished at like +3 for a week, or -3 for a week. And then I deleted it.
I think I almost remember you asking if you could find somebody to Photoshop you a Kraken. Was that you?
No, it wasn't even about a Kraken.
Oh.
It was about a guy who just grew tentacles. He was time traveling. And I don't know where the idea came from.
But it's so good in the 001. You did such a good job on it.
I just turned it into a Kraken. So, yeah, and then of course, as Grigori pointed out, I have the many styles of humor here. I tried to take inspiration from Harry's one article with my author avatar with the mascot guy.
Oh God, I love that.
That's one of my all caps guys, and then on top of that,
that's like one of my best articles, and it's because I like how you guys write so much.
I love them. I love that one.
Want to be you guys.
I have situational comedy, which is something I love to write. Which is that's probably my bread and butter there.
Yep.
Or just set up punchline within the clinical tone. Once you get a hang of that, it's the most fun thing to write.
Yep.
And then let me think of some more. What else do I got?
Sorry, I'm just reading this and chuckling to myself.
Guerrilla marketing. Guerrilla marketing.
Fucking guerrilla marketing.
On for
God, that
probably
was
an hour on. Guerrilla marketing was an article by me and Rounderhouse. It was our first collab together when I was still a newish author.
I liked it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was about this business that would sell fucked up items that would turn people into like ape like abominations. And then it ended with like Dr. Bright as an ape getting the business shut down or something. Still kind of fuzzy in my head because I blacked out both of it. But for some reason, it caused such an extreme reaction, like an extreme negative reaction among a lot of the reader base that I had not seen ever. That was my first real experience with the, like, I would call the toxic side of the SCP Wiki, or like, not even that.
Yeah.
Some of the criticisms were valid, but I would say the little more hardcore side of the SCP Wiki kind of came out that day. And it's something that stuck with me and how I approached this site as like at this point, I'm just going to do what I want because I've done so well. And I think that's how a lot of you guys see it as well.
Yep.
But a lot of the incidents that happened in this were kind of inspired by real things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not going to go into
I got
what
that
is
immediately.
I
I
mean,
got that immediately.
People who know, and I'm not going to go into what's what because that's negative attention I'm not going to bring up, but definitely something that went into this piece. So it really did become autobiographical of like what I went through. My author avatar having a meltdown over like not being good enough. That's something I felt. And yeah, once again, probably best thing I've written. Holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm glad I got to talk about it.
I
Great
think
message.
it's awesome. It's a terrific article. There's a reason we include this, and you weren't the one to say that we should talk about it.
No, I sacrificed one of my picks when we briefly weren't gonna have plagues in the list. I was like, well, okay, no, make it officially on the list. I don't want to temporarily, briefly talk about this. I love this article.
But I will say that I think we have all experienced something where a more experienced and at the time seemingly more successful author told us this is the way that this works and you can't do this.
Yep.
For me, it was continuing narratives. I'm sure Harry got that a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
Every article needs to stand on its own. So I still endeavor to make every article stand on its own, but I was told pretty much right from the beginning that doing a series that crossed over between SCPs and Tales was a death sentence. And don't get me wrong, that's not nearly as popular as some of the other stuff I've done, but I think it's been a great success. And, it's also why I was so scared to write comedy for so long, because I saw the reactions to people had to comedy stuff on the wiki. I would tell Harry for months, I just can't write comedy. It's not going to happen. And now most of the stuff I write is comedy. Or just like deep, dark horror. I kind of pivot between the two.
You find your voice, you find what you're good at, you find what you like, you get comfortable with yourself, you get the friends who are also comfortable with you, and you work together to write stuff, which is the message in your 001.
But what's so fucking hilarious
so
about it is that we have all had that experience, maybe not as extreme as Guerrilla Marketing had, but where, the finger on the pulse of the community has said, no, you can't do that. And then we ultimately were like, and then we believed it at the time and either kind of, oh, this sucks. And eventually got to the point where like, well, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And found real success,
Yeah, me and Rather talk about it all the time, but we always say to each other, I bet if we posted this today, people would not say a word.
No, they wouldn't.
And that's just...
Yeah,
goes to show the work that's been put in over the last few years.
Well, I also think that,
by
like,
the authors.
Weirdly enough, despite the fact that I think Rounder had done some comedic stuff by that point, it's not what people expected from him, and they reacted harshly to this like very absurd idea because comedy needed to be either a joke article or clever, wordy type stuff. And even that was pretty hard to pull off. And now I feel like people are much more willing, even just a couple years later, to just accept absurdity. Which is funny that that wasn't accepted already when Fifithism was a thing, which used absurdity for horror. Like, they're just the other side of the coin. This shouldn't have been controversial.
And Cadaver Commander.
Yeah,
I was about to say exactly that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
and I guess I would say the style of comedy that they wrote and the style of comedy that's prevalent nowadays is much different in a way, just because you could tell the old style from the new, where the old style still has, I would say the new style is much more, is focused on a lot more on character and dialogue-based humor, whereas in some other, some circumstances that are different are like Dr. Spankow. But a lot of Dave U. Fool's humor comes from the situation that the Foundation is analyzing through the scientific document. Whereas, like I said, I would say my style of comedy, some of Harry's, some of Grigori's, and definitely some of Dune's is like humor that is around the character of the Foundation or the reactions of the Foundation to a ridiculous event.
I like splitting the difference.
Yeah.
I like doing things that are utterly ridiculous, and then
There's definitely
including
space for both.
yeah, but I mean that's what's so great is that because the acceptance of character-based and dialogue-based character work, both for serious reasons and for comedic reasons, is so much more accepted on the wiki now. You can do something like what Dave You Fool would do, and then you can have a scene where someone is reacting to it and have just so much fun with it.
Yeah.
And it's because we didn't let go of that stuff that we liked so much. Like we read Moon Champion and shit and went, this is really funny. I want more.
There should be more of this, yeah.
And we just kept doing it for the entirety of series 6 and 7 until the entire world just bent to the acceptance of it. But also, like, on a similar note, this 001 proposal has your author avatar being kind of unsure and kind of uncertain in what he's doing and doubting himself and starting out not quite confident in what he's got and ends up achieving something. And this is in your 001 proposal, which succeeded wildly because you've got this autobiographical thing about having had troubles in the past, and it is a triumph because you have overcome those things because you're an awesome author. So good job on that.
I couldn't be happier on how this turned out for real.
It's great.
I just want to say that the end of the dialogue box for SCP-4639 is one of the funniest things you've ever written.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Then you are a cat, and then the following line.
Oh, yeah.
It's such an obvious joke, but it is so not what I expect in this conversation that every time I read it, it's why I was sitting here chuckling while you were talking, because I looked at that line again and went... So,
total asshole.
Wow.
It's something apparently I've grown to be good at writing.
Yes, your dialogue is really, really good. And I really have always really appreciated that you know, and maybe it comes from the same space that led you to delete things earlier on, but you are, and it's not a sense of perfectionism, you're always looking to try and make something the best it can be, because I remember reading your revisions of the Gumball, or, you know, and you having crit it, because you had a great idea to begin with, and it was a good article, and you were like, I feel like it could be something more, and it fucking is. It's, you know, and so is the Miners. I remember you bringing me several renditions of that, and you know, I left a comment on this that, you know, you didn't respond to, but that's fine. Whatever. It's responding to Harry's. It's okay.
Okay.
But just the point that I think that the thing that you do, I mean, it's not about the quality of your writing, which is really good, but something I really admire about the way that you tackle writing is that you, A, really listen to crit, and B, are capable of giving yourself crit, you know, in ways that is really productive, that you go back and you go, this could be more. And then you transform it. You know, you almost always show me a draft that's good. That's like, this is postable. This is good. Maybe it's missing something, but it's solid. And then you go, you know, enough people have said it's maybe missing something. I should give it. And then you come up with something that I then go, what the fuck? This is so funny or so well done. So
yeah, this really came together because this came together solely due to crit, I'd say. Like, I had the good ideas, it's just Irby definitely helped me. Harry gave me the ending. Your crit Grigori got me through a lot around their house. Really did help me out a lot with this. So having someone to depend on is definitely
but
aspiring authors out there, something that's needed to write at a higher level.
Yeah, I want to give you the credit for like being able to take crit and then transform it into something sublimely better than it was before, because that's hard.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of my like major skills with this.
Your ability to revision is fucking dope, and I'm kind of jealous of it. Because I revision and fine tune. You oftentimes, it's the same article, but it is on a whole different level when you end up posting it, or even when you go back to revise it later on. You know, I'm very impressed by that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyway, okay, I don't want to cut off because I'm so glad that we've talked about both of your articles, but we are kind of getting in the weeds here. So let's move on.
Let's move it.
Unless you want to say anything else.
How weedy are we? How weedy are we?
Just thank
because
you.
We have actually just done 2 each.
Yeah, we're about 2 hours, so we could potentially cut off these last 2 and talk about them next time. Though I feel bad because we didn't talk about any of Captain Kirby's stuff from Nobody.
Oh shit, yeah, that's true.
Kirby's isn't too hard to talk about. We could. Do
let's talk about 0513 and then
also I want to quickly just thank you so much for reminding me of that. Didn't name drop Kirby hardly at all when we were talking about the man in the white suit team. That was a team where all of the authors are superstars. Kirby is fantastic, and is one of the few authors who was fantastic in 2018 and is still fantastic.
Yes.
Captain Kirby, the author who, like last month, wrote a tale that is at 300 and something.
Oh my
now.
god, yeah.
Kirby is terrific, and his contributions to the Man in the White Suit are all great.
We brought up
that whole series is great.
We brought up End of Death earlier, and that's his baby.
Yes, and we are definitely going to talk about End of Death when we talk about cans. We'll definitely talk about that with Kirby, so that'll be great.
But we also have an idea for an episode that should be out soon that will involve Kirby. That's not End of Death. That I think is pretty brilliant.
Kirby pitched a really great idea that we're hoping to work on, so that'll be good. So we're going to talk about Kirby's proposal, which was one of Plague's picks.
So when we talked about the Man in the White Suit, we did list off everyone that was involved in the team. But we immediately started talking about two of Tufto's. That's not to say that we didn't like Kirby's, which was actually the first article that was released in that series, which was That Is Not My Name, right?
Hello, My Name Isn't, I believe.
Hello, My Name Isn't. I almost
which is a great title.
It's a great title. Like all of the Nobody titles, honestly. There's a lot of excellent Nobody puns out there.
Yes.
Including our episode title last time. I'm very fond of that.
Yes.
But yeah, Captain Kirby deserves as much credit as Tufto and Rounder for that team. So
absolutely.
Anyway, so Plague, you picked Captain Kirby's proposal, which is 0513, which is, I kind of want to do the setup on this and then leave it. Because the twist is like...
It's a mystery, yeah.
Yeah, it's a mystery. I'm not going to go super in-depth.
Yeah,
the idea is that there's an entity that's on the O5 Council who is anomalous, called 0513. But the Foundation is unclear on what the anomaly is, and so they don't want to clue in this 05, this overseer, that they think that he's anomalous. So they're gonna keep investigating him, but around his attention. And so this whole article is digging into, there used to be a different 05 council that are all gone. There used to be a different Site 01 that is completely vaporized. They eventually find the wreckage of it. And the only person who seems to have survived out of that group of overseers is 0513. So he must be anomalous. The purpose on his council, which is 0513's special connection to the anomalous, gives him a perspective no other council member could begin to fathom. While normalcy confirmation meetings require 11 members for quorum, no meeting is allowed to proceed without 05's attendance. So that tells the current 05s there is something crazy important about him. But they can't.
Which is funny because it always plays into the use of 0513 as the tiebreaker in votes, which we use in 6500.
Yep, sure did.
Because I'm pretty sure you're 0513.
Yes. Yeah, you are. You're the mediator. And, the GOC, the Manicharitol Formation, the Marshall, Carter, and Dark, the UIU, they all have a different idea about who this 05 is, which is something we kind of stole for 050, but it's not utilized the same way here. And they're doing all these different tests without his knowledge. They're trying to figure out his history. They're going back and trying to find old archives. And it's just a mystery in a very straightforward fashion. Each collapsible is a new kind of branch of this investigation, culminating in, a revelation that is so just genuinely, like, once you get it and you look back at it, you realize, oh, of course, they've been telling me this whole time that's what's going on. But it's the first time I read it, I was genuinely like, what the fuck's up with this guy? What is it? And it's such a nice forehead slapping sort of revelation. Like, oh my God, I should have seen this coming. Without giving away any of the finer details along that way, why does this one stand out for you?
I think the story of this is it's so tightly written.
Yeah.
Like Kirby, I could say so much. You guys already know. Harry's a great author. Did you know this was written within like his first year on the site?
That makes sense because
Yeah.
it feels less experimental than some of the stuff he did later.
But
That's not an insult by any means.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Just
it's a
saying,
murder
like,
mystery.
this-
Not a murder mystery, but yeah, it's a murder mystery.
Yeah,
This was
kinda
written
is.
on his first year on the site. Like this is one of, or like 30 articles his first year. But like, he came out swinging, killed it with the 001. I'd say it's up there with some of my favorites.
What was his 5,000 entry?
It wasn't the Wanderlust.
No.
I forget, but he came in like 4th or 5th place.
Was he Murder and Containment?
No, that was Pisul.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that feels like it. Yeah, this is really, really good story, and I will say, this is one of the excuse me, earliest examples I found of like the O5 Council being written in a more casual-ish manner, where they talk like actual real people.
Yes.
Which is something that's apparently controversial. But this, like, the dialogue is well written, and for like a grounded O5 Council where they're all pretty human, they're written in a way where you can tell them all apart, which is very hard to do, as I've already explained.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really, really love this one, and it's not a long read. I would definitely check this
No,
out if you haven't. It's pretty
very
high.
quick.
It's up there. I would assume a lot of people have read this one.
Yeah, I reread this on my lunch break today.
Yeah.
Very quick.
Yep.
I think why this one is an 001 for me and why it matters, why we should talk about it, other than the fact it's just a great story. But that added layer to me of why this makes sense as an 001 is this is one of the earlier ones that I read that had a believable characterization of the O5s, like you just said. It frames even earlier than having read Resurrection, which also does a lot of good work with the O5s. I know people have very mixed feelings on Resurrection, but I think that's something that Resurrection does well.
GL5s for sure.
Yeah. This one does in this much more grounded, believable way that there are these 12 people, other than the one that they're trying to investigate, that are just really confused about what happened before and are trying to figure it out and are fairly frustrated by this event. In a very believable way. They don't just like immediately lose their mind and start shooting each other or anything. It's this very believable bureaucratic frustration at a mystery that is seemingly unsolvable. And the way that these work to present the O5s not as some shadow cabal, but as people that are in positions of power in a believable way is really, really effective. I'm sure it's not the first time that we saw this, but like you said, it's the first time that I remember reading the O5s that didn't sound like somebody like either from Shakespeare or some weird like stilted, immortal businessman or something. These are just people. They're people that clearly have a lot of authority and a lot of know-how, but they are just people that are having conferences. The idea that they needed to maintain quorum, it just all feels very grounded, as much as something like this could be grounded.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. I enjoy the progression of the mystery, particularly the way that it's dribbled out, and
It's really based well.
Yeah, and you start to have suspicions, and it nurtures the suspicions very effectively. The dialogue is all excellent. The people are very real, and like you said, there's not crazy heightened tone, and there's not ridiculous over the top dialogue. There's a bunch of people who are getting pissed off at each other, and they all have, like you were saying, Plague. Characterizing them individually is also important, and the O5s that he brings up in this story all do have actually fleshed out differences between them, which is something that people don't often do, especially not in an early article.
I will say that the most of the tension between these characters is pretty subtle until the point where it gets heightened and there's like an argument that breaks down the conversation, because most of this article is dialogue, or a big portion of it anyway. And that is probably the most believable disagreement I've read in this kind of setting. It's just people that are like frustrated with the situation and like crack something and misunderstand. Somebody says something rude. It's just this really believable situation where you go like, I totally get it. That guy was being an asshole, but also I'm pretty sure somebody would at some point say something really rude because of just how frustrating this whole situation is.
They're just getting pissed off and scared, and and they've been hanging out because these people are an echo chamber and they're stuck with each other all this time, right? So they're also getting just really too aware of each other's personalities over time too, and just it's all handled very, very well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, like I said, why it's important, like a lot of these other articles, the thing that really sets 001s apart for me, even when they're not in grand in scope, and this one actually isn't that grand in scope, even though it seems at first to be talking about something crazy mysterious, because it's a really small story in a lot of ways, is that reframing of established site lore. In this case, it's more of a conceptual site lore, about in the forms of the O5s and the administrator. But it works so much better than a lot of the really famous things that deal with, like Cactus's stuff, which is good. And other things that deal with like the, kind of mythical O5s, like Resurrection does that a little bit, still a little more grounded. But this is just like we've said. I mean, we're just repeating it ad nauseum now, but it's just this incredibly believable group of people in this semi-mythical position in the Foundation, which is it's just really great.
It also references the concept of 001s being like specific projects that are designated as 001, opening up the possibility of more than one of them being true, which is hinted at in the 001 page itself, but isn't often mentioned by people. Usually it's, this is the one that's real, this is the one that's real, and this one talks about it as more a high priority thing that they're really concerned about right now, which a lot of authors think of as the way that it's treated in the universe. It's how I think of it. So
yeah, I definitely think of them as these are all the way I genuinely think about it is that these are all like really important and very real. None of these are engineered to just be a smokescreen, and that honestly there is now just one real one. But anyway, okay, we've got a bunch of emails. So what we'll do is we'll save the last one we were going to talk about for the next episode. But it is also one of my favorites. But let's get, because we got like 6 emails.
Look at all the fucking emails.
So I'm gonna read this first one. This is why do I always have such trouble?
JTKC.
I don't know why I say it wrong.
I do it too. I don't understand it.
JTKC. Hi there, Sim people. Always happy when there's a new episode, and I look forward to them each time. Grigori says you guys are recording a new one, because I'm the only one that doesn't need PR. Anyway.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, true. Anyway, 001s. Regardless of the approach, it's always so exciting to see a new 001, especially if it's a pretty big author doing their first one. Grigori proposal when? Probably never. Maybe, but probably not. A lot of the proposals can qualify as some of my favorite things on the site, so it's hard to narrow it down. Amen. 001s also tend to be the author's magnum opus on the wiki, so for most of my favorite entries, you can feel the love oozing out of the worlds. The ones he's picked is Last Ride of the Day, which we've talked about extensively. I will point out that at the end he says, God, I really need to read his book. You fucking do! And he's got 3 of them and is working on the 4th, and they're each better than the fucking last. The 3rd one was his best one yet. So I'm just gonna kind of skip over the discussion of Last Ride of the Day because we've talked about it, but it definitely is a great article, obviously. The Black Moon by Tanhony, which Tanhony is actually an author whose non-STP writing I've read, and I can confirm that Ethereal Space is fucking awesome. I like this. I haven't read it. I have so many other things to read, but I will get to it eventually. I like this 001 for probably more simple reasons than the rest. The Black Moon, which is this big MacGuffin thing on the wiki, to be the actual villains, so I hype for my new SCP reader brain. A really cool iteration of the administrator, and one who tries everything in their power to defeat this universal force, and finally defeats it by beating it upside the head with an ashtray.
And that's Tanhony.
Yeah. And then Memul and Kurar by Rounder House. This is the one that... This is
Jade
gold.
Proposal.
I thought this was...
That's Ammonia Ram.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah. So this is the most recent one. Personally, I like my 0-1s bone out and not bone in. I don't know how the fuck that makes sense. But we'll see where the red tape story goes. I think authors like Rounder make me happy. I'm able to experience SCP, and you guys too, and makes the modern reading experience so hype.
Talks about the cinematic experience of the article, which, yeah, that's a big thing in this one. And in Ammonia Ram, they're very cinematic.
Yeah, incredibly so. Really, really well described. He gives a few honorable mentions, and almost all, like 2 out of 3 are the ones we talked about, and we're going to cut them down. So we're going to get to the question. What do you guys think about the shorter first SCP recorded in universe type 001s, and do you think a short form 001 could work in the current SCP landscape? What do you guys think?
All right, so the first recorded SCP in universe, I'd say it's one of those things that's been done already, but also one of those things that's so broad that you could probably do it maybe 20 times. As long as you keep putting a unique spin on it, you can keep doing it because it makes sense. It's the 001 slot. For a short form one, I'd say short form in and of itself is kind of a gimmick, if you think about it. Yep. Shorter articles are something you could write for the wiki, but short form in and of itself is a challenge. And to write a good short form article is harder than writing a regular main series article. And writing a short form 001 is hard because that's not what everyone is expecting. And now that it's been done already and that one is so popular, you need to do something that completely turns that on its head and makes me not think of the short form SCP-001 that exists already, because that's what you're competing with, sadly. Nobody, even if am shutting off my brain towards that article, still it's going to pop up, hey, this doesn't hit as well as, what is it, Lily's proposal?
Lily's proposal, yeah.
Yeah, Lily's proposal. This doesn't hit as well as Lily's proposal. Lily's proposal does this better, because you have to make sure every single word is working well. 001 is a special slot, and like I said, short form is a gimmick.
Yeah, like I've read so many stuff by Gears Dr. Gears that I think is terrific. Gears is amazing and is one of the tent poles of the community, and also a really great guy. Gears is 001's one of my least favorites, and it is one of those things. Here's the very first SCP, and it's written in a different format, which is clever. And the thing is a weird murder monster that's just kind of dumb, like in universe. And that's it. And it's designed to be the first SCP they discovered. It's described very simply, and it's very short. And it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, my opinion is split. I would say the first recorded SCP in the universe is it's a boring idea. I don't really care, because we're constantly going way back into history, like, I mean, how many times have I written about the Deva, and they go back before recorded human history, so like I don't care about that, but I do actually think there should be I don't know about a lot more, but I think people should feel less intimidated to try and make short form work, because hot take, I don't really like Lily's, but I think it's really impressive. Yeah. And I think a record counts as short form personally. And I think that more people could give it a shot. I would like to see wilder takes, like the idea of writing something that is short, that has more implication than it does detail. I think that could totally work. And it can definitely. And I think people should go harder for it, because honestly, we've got too many super long ones. And it's a genuine,
well, hold on to your
challenge. Yeah, I know. I'm not saying long is bad, obviously.
Yeah, I know.
But I do think that I would love to see more people try to do something like a record or Lily's proposal. I would love it.
Well, who knows? There's always somebody working on a new one.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, if you think you could do it, give it a shot.
I think Nico could probably do it.
Challenge. Nico definitely could do it.
I think maybe UE could probably do it too, honestly.
I hope UE writes a 001.
Yeah, it'll be.
I couldn't imagine what it would be.
I mean, UE's just the greatest unsung hero of SCP writing.
For real.
They're both terrific.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, who would like to read Boris's email?
I could take that one.
All right.
Surprisingly, I never really had much interest in 001s. The first time I tried to read through them, while being new to the site and also a child in 2012, I gave up after the sheaf of paper. Which is... whose is that?
Jonathan Balls.
Jonathan Balls, great name. That being said, my favorite is always Spike Brennan's, and I weirdly enjoy the old ones just being short tails for the most part, like the Spiral Path.
Spiral Path kicks ass.
I think that's Mans. Is that Mans?
I think so.
Think so? Yeah.
Pretty sure
Spiral Path is good. It's also that thing we don't. I know we shouldn't be introducing new content here, but the one thing we don't mention is so many of the 001 proposals are incompatible not only with each other but with almost the entire database and the setting, which the Spiral Path is. The Spiral Path basically goes, the whole website's bullshit, which is great. Anyway,
so and a trope that we didn't cover because none of the ones we did talked about it, but not so much an origin of the foundation, but an origin of the idea of the anomalous. Which is Spiral Path, I think, does a pretty good job.
It does.
Yeah, I would say that's like an older idea that was used much more.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
it's not really seen anymore because I think the culture of the wiki changed where it's like anything could be anomalous, and it's like the Muppets are sentient. Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Thank God you did that. Okay, Harry, you want to do chorus?
Yes, Gwari. It's been a while since I last wrote for this, hasn't it? 001 proposals are one of the wiki's most interesting aspects, as few things show more that there is no canon than the existence of multiple vastly different articles on the same slot. My favorite type of 001 proposals are big articles with loads of lore, though obviously the more variety is there in the proposals, the better for everyone. For today, there aren't a lot of questions, just two. For everyone. Which are your personal preferences for 001s? Are they significantly distinct than for regular articles? I'm assuming what that means is, how do you prefer the 001s differ from regular articles?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of hard to say because there's so few of them. I would say that I don't have a lot of preferences for everyday SCPs, other than there are certain tropes I find boring. But, so I don't really have a lot of like baggage typically. I mean, like except for like there are certain canons that I'm like, if something's connected to that canon, I'm like, I'm good, just because that setting doesn't really do it for me. Like, I like the idea of aces and eights, but I don't really want to read a western.
Oh fuck, aces and eights 001.
But like, I can't apply those preferences to 001s because they're all very unique. Even the ones that have sort of similar starting places are doing something in such a unique way from them each other that it's kind of hard to say.
I've always thought of it as a curiosity cabinet where it's just, it's the thing that's full of the really cool stuff that we want to display, where everybody put their A game in. So if you put your A game in, that's what I care about. The rest of it is just write what you want, what is good in your mind, what you like, and get criticism on it until it's really good and put it out there. And that's always enough for me. I'm relatively easy as long as you've been enjoying yourself and you do a good job.
There's very few of them that I would say are bad. There are a bunch that I think I would say I don't really like, but that I really respect and like admire. And that's not true of most SCPs. Because like you said, people are bringing their fucking A game.
Yeah, I wouldn't delete anything off the 001 list, and that is not true of any other list of articles on the website.
I delete one thing.
No. Oh, shit, fuck, yes. I would delete the ever-loving bejesus out of that one, but yes, everybody would, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me, and we'll just leave it at that. Carry on.
For myself, my personal preference, I like I said, I am a bit of a purist. The 001, like all you guys said, my belief is you should have one, and it should be your captain, but whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares what I think?
Hey, Harry, did you catch it the last time when Plague just slipped in, go fuck yourself?
Technically, you have one, Harry. The other ones.
He's gonna write another one.
Yeah, I know, and I'm excited
We'll
for it. It's been like
that.
3 years in the making. But
yeah, I've got two coming, and I've got two on the website. Carry on.
Ignoring that part, I don't like this phrasing, but I think it applies here. Does it feel like an 001? And that is so broad because you take Dave You Fools and you take Rounder Houses, and both of them feel like 001s, but they are the complete opposite of SCP article. And it doesn't come from scale. It doesn't come from being long. It comes from the passion you put into it.
Yep.
Does this have a passion of a 001? Can I tell that you want this to be some of the best writing on the site? And if I could see that, then I think it fits in there. And on the website, on the main list, I do expect good writing, but also I'll post a shit post every so often, and so will a lot of people. So
Yep.
that's where you put everything else you want to write.
Maybe that's what I should do for an 001 a shit post.
Good.
Well, that's actually the second question. For Grigori, since you're the only one in the session to not have your own 001 proposal, have you planned to write one in the future?
No.
No. He said
I don't have a plan to. Like I said, I'm not against it, like, as some, like, ideological thing. But I've never had an idea that I thought would work. Well, I do have an idea that would work, but I think it would just be dry. So I'm not interested in writing it. I might have one in the future. Odds are it'll probably be Victim, just because that's what most of my ideas end up being.
It'll be a giant middle finger to the concept of an origin story.
Probably.
I would love that. Oh my god! Wait, you could do something so funny with that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't even want to talk about it because then it's just going to take over my brain.
Yeah, like I can kind of already hear it in your diction as you speak. It's already rolling around in your head now that we've said it out loud.
But I've already kind of played around with some of the things I would do in a Victim 001, fucking with the idea of origin. Like in 7007, there are snippets in the video files that are, weird old guy speaking on an expedition, finding something that hints at something else. That is me just fucking with people. I did a behind the scenes thing for SCP-6897, which it tells anyone nothing, explains nothing about. But I could probably do that again. But I don't have a hard plan. I'm much. It's funny, despite the fact that I'm very type A. It's a rapid fire sort of type A. I get an idea for a thing, and I want that to be accomplished, and I sit down and I get that done.
But the beauty is, though, once you start his brain on something, he says no, and then he thinks about it for a while, and then he thinks about what he could do, and then he starts. So you probably just
So like a year ago, I said I would never do one, and now it's like, well, maybe.
We'll whittle them down to a maybe.
Yeah. 2025,
we'll get to a probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll read Teeths. Ones, which is the first line. Back again with an episode so soon. Yes, I know we have oftentimes had delays. We're terrible podcast hosts. I feel like my ears are being spoiled here. Really, these are amazing to listen to while I draw, and I'm always grateful for more content. But I'll get to the point. The point is, draw us more stuff. I love Teeth's art so much.
Teeth's art's great.
Ones, I love them. Cough, cough. Rounder House's gold and jade proposals have taken over a hyperfixation in my brain. Save me, please, save me. Cough, cough. Thank you for making me read that, Teeth. Love them, I say. I hope that this episode either delves more into the ones I love, Keter Duty, The World's Gone Beautiful, God's Blind Spot, and The Placeholder, being others that I enjoy the concept of, or tells me at least a little about the ones I've never had time to read myself. We were going to talk about Keter Duty, but we'll get back to that. The World's Gone Beautiful, there's not really much to say. You should just go read it. It's pretty short.
We could read the whole fucking thing.
And now, with the filler gone, it's time to my obligation to talk about how much I love Rajmata. The rest of this email has been expunged for you and everyone else who listens to Sim Creates Safety. Anyways,
I like the Jade proposal.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day and smooth recording as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did.
Last time it wasn't that smooth. I delayed things by like almost an hour because of technical problems. Who wants to read Crowcats?
We gonna just do symmetry? Have Plague do it again?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll do it again. Hello, Crowcat here. It's always interesting to look back on the 001s. Sometimes they feel like snapshots of the writing culture at the time.
Yeah.
We're talking about that. It's very, very true.
Mm-hmm.
My friends say that they find a lot of 001 proposals to be underwhelming. If they just feel like normal articles. I suppose as more 001s are made, they lose that sense of grandeur they used to have in the early days. Or perhaps that sense of grandeur has shifted. When they say a 001 feels mid or lacks a sense of impact, it's strange to me. I do feel their sense of impact, but likely because I was around for when they were posted. Almost everyone felt big when they showed up.
True.
I wasn't able to think of a question for the last episode at the time, but now I have. Back in the very beginning, the GOI hub had placeholder groups meant to inspire others to write articles about them, I assumed. Some of this evolved into actual GOIs. Black Box Labs became Prometheus Labs, Army of the Guardians of the Islamic became Araya, and the Man in Black / Fu became Nobody. Interestingly, one detail of this proto-Nobody was that he had a dog, a large male Doberman. Now my question for you is, what stories spring to mind when you hear Nobody has a dog?
I'm not going to tell you, because if I told you, I wouldn't write it.
The first thing I think of when I hear Nobody has a dog is, oh, thank God they'll stop talking about dogs like they're the second coming of Jesus Christ. People are too fucking obsessed with dogs these days.
Oh my God.
I like dogs, but they are not crack cocaine.
Cats are,
Are you
though.
familiar?
Cats are.
Cats are better. Sorry,
I
it's just
I
true.
like dogs.
Dogs are nice.
Dogs are great. I live with 2 dogs. They're very charming.
They like everything. But if all day on Facebook, people posting about dogs, like dogs, nothing about just retweeting everything about dogs. Anyway,
Well, don't spend time on Facebook.
Well, luckily
That's
no
true.
one has a dog. Nobody has a dog.
nobody has a dog now, so it's awful.
I'm gonna tell. I think I'm gonna tell Ratherhouse that, because I assume either he has no idea or it's something that he forgot about, that he probably wrote down in a note somewhere that he's gonna make into something, and then we'll see what he turns it into.
House can write about nobody's dog. You could work on it together. Do an article that's called "Nobody Has a Dog," and the two of you could do it, and then you could start a giant fight with the website. Guerrilla marketing too. Nobody has a dog.
Hey, how about the fact that Araya used to have an even more Islamophobic name?
Yeah.
Take a guess from that statement whether or not we're ever going to do an Araya episode.
Absolutely nobody's favorite GOI. Anyway, I guess the next email.
Yeah, your turn.
Montague. I was hoping the last one would be from Capulet, but it's from Fish. So Montague. References for okay, no, that's a high school level Shakespeare thing. Everybody knows this. Okay, so I'm fine.
I bite
Montague.
my thumb at thee, sir.
Do you bite your thumb at me, sir? Montague. I'm of two minds about the 001s. Hey, they say it. On one hand, the articles themselves are great. There's a lot of extremely well-written and truly influential stuff on the 001 page. When Day Breaks, which is at like 2000 and something.
Yeah,
Swan's
it's a great
Proposal,
article.
etc. It's terrific.
I think it hit the highest rated one recently.
Let's just be clear that like we probably wouldn't go over When Day Breaks because it doesn't need the hype, but it's a fucking dope article.
Oh yeah,
Incredible.
one of the best written story. One of the best written stories on the site.
100%.
Yes, and it needs
But
less
it doesn't.
than almost anything.
It has the credit it deserves, but it doesn't also get the credit it deserves. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's one of those things that's like at the 096 level of popularity, where 096 is probably one of the best written articles on the site from a story writing perspective, and then also
What?
When Day 096, is that the Shy Guy?
Yeah.
Great story.
You think it's one of the
Yeah.
best
The whole
ones?
thing with
Really?
documents attached to it,
One of the best stories from Series 1.
Oh, from Series 1. Okay.
Yeah.
including the documents and the incident and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I count that as one article. But
Yeah,
like,
because it is. Yeah, for
it's
sure.
very popular, and When Day Breaks is very popular, and they don't get the credit they deserve from the active writer base, and I want that to change.
I will
Right, because
say
everybody's like, "Hey, it's the creepy one with the sun and turns people to goop." Ooh, or
It's the
scary
only-
guy who's a scary monster. Ooh.
I mean, it's the only 001 that is on the same level of recognizability as like 096.
It's
Yeah,
true.
it is.
Like
I
it is
mean-
rated as though it were a Series 1 article, and it was what was it? Locke's 5Con entry or some insane bullshit?
I think it was
4Con.
It
3K.
started as a 3K.
Yeah.
Was it 3K? Even then, that was not long ago enough to be in the
Yeah.
in the 2000s or whatever the hell it's at now.
Yeah, it's
Didn't 5,000 hit like 2,000 the other day? I saw that. Put me
Is
into
it?
a blast.
Is it
Oh,
that low? I
yeah.
thought 5,000 was higher than that.
Maybe it's higher.
I think it's,
Maybe I'm
yeah.
thinking it hit 3,000.
Maybe we're all just this is a dying dream we're having. We're all just
Maybe it is.
minds.
No, it hit 3,000. That's what it hit. Hit
That-
3,000 recently, and that made me feel so old.
Yeah. On the other hand, The SCP-001 hub page is kind of a trap for new readers. Yeah, your average fresh-faced newbie is likely to start reading SCPs at the beginning with SCP-001, and most of those articles require at least some prior experience with the setting. It's not a good place to start your SCP journey. Yeah, and also shout out to the fact that then they'll go to 002 and have one of the absolute worst articles on the wiki to read as their first real article, which is great.
I literally had that response where I read, most of the ones that were there at the time when I first joined, and then started reading the other early ones and went, what the fuck happened here?
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck did people follow up on these brilliant, weird, crazy things with this piece of shit? Like, I was genuinely upset.
It's insane. Like, if you read it that way, if you read the 001s, you go, these are so cool. And then you read 002, which is objectively garbage. And then 003 is really good. And it's like, I don't know what's going on with this fucking website.
I know.
On the living room? Is SCP-002 the
It's the
living
living
room?
room. Yes, it's all
It's
living room,
trash.
otherwise known as Portugal has village elders. Fucking stupid SCP.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, back to positivity. Continuing the email. It's not a good place to start your SCP journey. When it comes to 001 Rex, I'm going to cheat and suggest 2 pseudo proposals. Oh shit, that were snuck onto the main list as normal SCPs. SCP-4380, first and foremost, by Felixu, and SCP-5956, The Rise No Canon by Placeholder McD and some other guy. Normally, I'm really good at remembering all the names, but right now I'm drawing a blank. Which 001 proposals are real in your personal version of canon? Well, that's fairly easy, isn't it? The 2 that are in my personal canon. And also Pikmins, and also Swans, and also like fucking 10 other ones.
Yeah.
All the things written by me are canon, and then the other articles that I randomly pick are also canon.
Plagues is definitely canon to me, for sure.
I don't think I've actually
Yeah,
directly referenced one in an article, but I think...
You might have referenced the frontispiece somewhere.
Did I?
I feel like you did somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
When I read a 001, it's like, I'm not the type that's like, oh, this one's real, this one's fake. It's like, I will read it, it is fake in that, it is real in that, it is as real as it needs to be in that story, and anytime it's referenced in any piece, it's also real in that.
Right.
I'm also biased because I didn't discover SCP until I was like, almost 34. So I was just reading it as fiction, like it didn't have that thing where I was like, oh, is this real? So I, that whole concept of like, which is the real 001, I've always kind of thought that was dumb. I've always really liked it, the 001s, for the reasons we've discussed it, that it gives everyone the opportunity to have this milestone. And it's produced some of the best fiction on the site. So I just see them as
on the internet.
as these really impressive things. Yeah.
I just take the same approach I take to everything else on the website, which is I like the ones that are incompatible with other stuff, but all the ones that are not incompatible with anything, I figure they're canon. I figure everything's canon unless it's impossible for it to be canon. That's how I do things. It's the Crisis on Infinite Earths method.
Yeah, I don't. I just ignore stuff.
Yeah, Grigori's got the that's too dumb to be canon to my story approach.
I love so much that we created a canon that deals with the destruction of anomalies, because anytime I want, I can just say, yeah, that one was lost in the impasse. Nope, it's gone. Sorry.
Killed all the shit we don't like.
Oh, you gonna write about it? Nope.
It's amazing. There are some authors, everything they ever wrote was destroyed in the impasse. It's
crazy.
So weird.
All right, I'm going to read this last one. This is from Fish. Hello again. Having read all the 001 proposals and enjoying most, I would definitely consider myself an expert on the subject, because that's how it works, right?
Right.
I think my de facto favorite 001 would be either the frontispiece or 0513. Good taste.
Nice.
What would your favorites be? Yeah, I think we established that earlier.
Did we?
Yeah, we sure did. Cheers. So, yeah, I think this is a nice place to wrap it up. Not only because we're at the end of the outline, but we're definitely going to come back because we clearly care a lot about 001s, as almost everyone does in this community. Which is funny because I think I'm one of the few authors who's, got a presence on the wiki that's kind of like, I don't know if I'll ever do one. Whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. And the moment he posts this episode, the 24-hour countdown to his 001 being posted will start.
The 24-hour. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I work 60 hours a week. But
Glory
anyway,
God.
I'm sure I will at some point.
That's what it's called. It's called I Work 60
Oh, wait.
What?
You're sure you will now?
What?
Yeah, I'm sure I will consider it. You didn't. You yelled in the
I'll
middle of my
consider
sentence.
My bad.
But
I thought we got you.
Be able to be yelled
no,
at.
I don't. I mean, the most likely off the top of my head is a victim thing, but I feel like I've kind of already touched on the things I would want to do a victim 001 about. That being said, victim allows for my flow of consciousness, so it would work the best. And it would piss people off, which makes me so happy every time people get pissed off at victim.
Yes. This would be the 001 list is a very good place to try to piss people off.
I know.
It's like they'll instantly be like, what the fuck is this?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Anyway, so if you would like to support the show, you can go to our show page on Spotify, or you can go to either Harry or my Ko-Fi pages. Our Wiki, our Twitter here is SIMCREAT. The email address is at simplycreativepeople@gmail.com. No at the front, obviously. It's an email. Come on, you know what you're doing.
Put extra ads in there. That's fine. The computer.
My Twitter is at Grigori Karpin.
Mine is at HarryBlank SCP for as long as that fucking website exists and as long as I feel like being on it, which is not long for this world, hopefully.
It's the best way to get in contact with our fans, so I hope
it is
around.
Unfortunately the truth. We're all bound to this hellscape we've created.
I mean, I hate Elon Musk, but I hope this stupid site sticks around.
Survives him somehow.
Yep.
Blake, what do you got?
I got Plaguepjp on Twitter. If you want to see my author page, go to scpwiki.com/Plaguepjp. I got my 001 proposal. It is pinned at the top of my author page if you end up checking that out.
Well, these will all be in the description.
Also,
so
yes,
please click open the description of this episode and go through. And if you've liked this discussion, please either read these articles or open them in the tab. Certainly, Plagues and Harry's.
Especially Plagues.
And Harry's.
And Harry's. Let's give Harry some credit.
Yeah, let's just give Harry a little bit of credit.
The article I only wrote half of that is now Harry's, apparently.
Well, and Ip's, obviously, but you're the one here.
Because we don't give enough credit to Ip on Simply Creative People, right?
Ridiculous.
Ip wrote one of my favorite articles, the one about Big Bird in space.
Oh my
what
god.
One was that?
Forget the number.
I remember that one, but I'm
4189 or something.
Ip has had such a fucking impact on this site. It's ridiculous. I mean, he's almost responsible for inspiring sarcasm with that one about the beach, the mechanite beach.
Hammered Anvil.
Yeah, because Metaphysician read that one and went, "Oh, that's cool. So it's like there are people," and then his brain started going. That's incredible.
The collaborative writing. It all just gets piled together into various people's brains and then comes out.
It goes.
Anyway.
So yeah, thanks again, Plague.
Yeah.
Thank you
for coming back. And
glad to come back on.
Yeah, we'll do this again in a few months.
Plaguepjp will return in Simply Creative 001's Part 2, Simply Creative 001 Harder, Jubilee, Boogaloo, Electric Boogaloo.
Episode 35, Diamonds Are Forever. Just a James Bond reference for no reason.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Joke at the end. Bye.
Joke at the end. Laugh, laugh,
Joke
laugh.
at the end.
Ha 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 ha.